All right. Hello, everybody. Sorry that it has been a while, but I am back with another Strike Force news stream. Yes, I have been busy in recent days, so I haven't been able to get as quickly to these, but I have catch up to play. And the first thing in catch up that we are going to be doing right now is we're going to be talking about the few recent mass shootings that happened over the week. Like 4 shootings in one day, as Thanksgiving was coming underway. But before we actually get talking about the mass shootings themselves, there was this article. I do not even remember how I came across this article, but that there was this article from rand.org that talks about the definitions of and trends, definitions and trends of mass shootings. So we will read this first, then we will get into the actual shootings themselves, some economic news, a lot of it about trade and other stuff. Then we'll be talking a little bit about Thanksgiving. As this article right here, were American Indians the victims of genocide, which is an article that Incredible Aspie recommended, and I thought, let's give it a read. But anyway, let's see what we got here. All right. Mass shootings, definitions, and trends. Actually, 1 second. I'm going to just share out the link of this stream out on Twitter. I think I'm going to share it on the Discord as well. So, hold on 1 second. Hold on. Probably should have done this like before I'd actually gone on air, but oh well. All right. So anyway, mass shootings, definitions, and trends. Summary. There's no standard definition of what constitutes a mass shooting. Me personally, what I understand to be a mass shooting is if there was like 10 deaths or more done by one single shooter. But anyway, media outlets, academic researchers, and law enforcement agencies frequently use different definitions when discussing mass shootings, leading to different assessments of how frequently mass shootings occur and whether they are more common now than they were a decade or two ago. 1 second. Okay, was just wanted to test to see if how my audio was, but yeah, I mean that's a bit of a point to be raising there, because I almost go questioning quite often, actually, of how artificially inflated the numbers of the amount of mass shootings in the United States is, actually. In this essay, we provide an overview of mass shootings, one of the 8 outcomes examined in our research syntheses. I think that's how you pronounce it. We first describe different approaches for defining a mass shooting and then discuss how using different definitions can influence estimates of mass shooting levels and trends. The information was collected from a targeted search of the literature separate from that outlined in the methodology description. What is a mass shooting? In the 1980s, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, defined mass murderers as someone who kills 4 or more people in a single incident, not including himself, typically in a single location. Krause and Richardson, 2015. However, the government has never defined mass shooting as a separate category, and there is not yet a universally accepted definition of the term. Okay, so at first when I was like seeing the first description of this article right here, I thought it was saying that the FBI defines a mass shooter or mass shooting, someone who kills 4 or more people. But no, it's just a single murderer. But anyway. However, the government has never defined mass shooting as a separate category, and there is not yet a universally accepted definition of the term. Thus, media outlets, academic researchers, and law enforcement agencies frequently use different definitions when discussing mass shootings, which can complicate our understanding of mass shooting trends and their relationship to gun policy. It really can. The table below provides examples of the variation in the criteria set by 5 of the most commonly referenced data sources on mass shootings in the United States. Although there is no official standard for the casualty threshold that distinguishes a mass shooting from other violent crimes involving a firearm, a common approach to the literature is to adopt the FBI's criteria for a mass murderer and set a casualty threshold of 4 fatalities by firearm, excluding the offender or offenders. Dewey, Kavanzik, and Moody, 2002. Krauss and Richardson, 2015. Gaius, 2015. C. Fox and Friedel, or how do you pronounce that, 2016. Okay, I guess a lot of this is just going to be them mentioning the sources of their information. So probably don't have to exactly read that part. However, this categorization is not without controversy. It does not capture incidents in which fewer than 4 victims were killed, but additional victims were injured. And it does not include multiple victim homicides in which fewer than 4 fatalities resulted from gunshots, but additional fatalities occurred by other means. Additionally, the FBI classification of mass murderer was established primarily within the aim of clarifying criminal profiling procedures, not for the purpose of data collection or statistical analysis. Thus, many have chosen alternative definitions of casualty thresholds for mass shootings. For instance, Lott and Lance, 2002, adopted the definition of 2 or more injured victims. That's really going to inflate your number of mass shootings right there alone. The Gun Violence Archive, undated A, defined mass shooting as an incident in which 4 or more victims, excluding the shooter, are injured or killed. And Mass Shooting Tracker, undated, set a criterion of 4 or more people injured or killed, including the shooter. Hold on a second. I'm just going to send out the link a little bit more. All right. And still no activity in the chat. It's kind of a slow day. I guess people are still trying to wake up from the from eating all that turkey yesterday on Thanksgiving. Another definitional disagreement is whether to include multiple victim shooting incidents that occur in connection with some other crime or domestic dispute, because mass shootings that stem from domestic and gang violence are contextually distinct from high fatality indiscriminate killings in public venues. Some have argued that they should be treated separately. In their analysis of mass public shootings, Lott and Lance, 2000, excluded any felony-related shooting, and Dewey, Kavanzik, and Moody excluded incidents where both the victims and offenders were involved in unlawful activities, such as organized crime, gang activity, and drug deals. If you include that, that would be meaning that you would include every single shooting that happened in Chicago, for example, or Detroit, or Los Angeles. And that would really inflate the number of mass shootings in the U.S. to 1,000 or something like that, instead of around a little under 500, as other news articles are claiming it to be for this year so far in the U.S., around 350 or something like that. I don't know. Involved blah blah blah. Similarly, Gaius 2015C restricted analysis to events that occurred in a relatively public area and in which victims appeared to have been selected randomly. Okay, in a relatively public area. So that would not include people's own homes, which that I would argue is artificially deflating the mass shootings. Although I personally say if there is not 10 or more people killed in a single shooting, that it doesn't really classify as a mass shooting, at least in my book. And with all these definitions that we are given, it seems that the definition of a mass shooting is turning out to be really subjective. However, others have claimed that this narrow definition ignores a substantial proportion of gun-related violence from family or felon-related murder. Fox and Levin, 2015. Data collection efforts by Mass Shooting Tracker and the Gun Violence Archive thus counted all incidents that met their designated casualty threshold as mass shootings, regardless of the circumstances that led to the event. And by the way, to anyone in the future who might be watching this article right here, those 6 dislikes that you see down in the down below my video right now, that was before I went live here. So I think it might be just some people that have a massive hate boner for me to the point of just like, you know, giving a good old thumbs down to this video. Although we just now got ourselves a new viewer and he or she has given another like to this video. So thank you very much. All right. These definitions, okay. These definitions matter. I say that definitions do matter, but we need to find ourselves a solid definition of what classifies as a mass shooting. I say, let's come to a consensus that 10 people or more within a single shooting counts as, you know, mass shooting. Red Feather says, hello. Hi there, Red Feather. How you doing? You have a happy Thanksgiving? Depending on which data source is referenced, there were 7, 65, 332, or 371 mass shootings in the United States in 2015. See table below. And those are just some examples. More restrictive definitions, e.g. Mother Jones, focus on the prevalence of higher profile events motivated by mass murder. But they omit more common incidents occurring in connection with domestic violence or criminal activity, which make up about 80% of mass shooting incidents with 4 or more fatally injured victims. Krause and Richardson, 2015. Broader definitions, e.g. Mass Shooting Tracker, provide a more comprehensive depiction of the prevalence of gun violence, but they obscure the variety of circumstances in which these incidents take place and their associated policy implications. Furthermore, if the effects of a firearm policy are expected to affect only public mass shooting incidents, then analysis that includes domestic violence mass shootings in the outcome measure could obscure identification of significant effects that would be found in a more targeted analysis of public mass shootings alone. There is thus value in having multiple measurements of mass shootings, but only if their definitions are clearly and precisely explained and they are used by researchers in a manner appropriate to the analysis. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a good idea. Is if a person is going to be talking about okay, if a person is going to be talking about, or if a person writing a news article is going to be talking about mass shootings, that they ought to give themselves, that they ought to provide a definition of what they're classifying as a mass shooting. That would be very helpful. God, where did I last leave off? I can't even remember. Jeez, should have bookmarked it. Yeah, Thanksgiving was pretty good. How was yours? It was good, Red Feather. Had 2 different types of turkey. Had duck. I ate some duck, and that was pretty good. It tasted like chicken liver, kind of. And had some ham. Green bean casserole. It was all pretty good. I skipped the sweet potato because, you know. Red Feather asks, honest journalism? What is that? Gee, I don't know, Red Feather. I don't think I've ever seen it. Provide a more comprehensive depiction of the prevalence of gun violence, but they obscure the variety of circumstances in which these incidents take place and their associated policy implications. I think that's where I left off reading at. Furthermore, if the effects of a firearm policy are expected to affect only public mass shooting incidents, then analysis that includes domestic violence mass shootings in the outcome measure could obscure identification of significant effects that would be found in a more targeted analysis of public mass shootings alone. There is thus value in having multiple measurements of mass shootings, but only if their definitions are clearly and precisely explained and they are used by researchers in a manner appropriate to the analysis. Okay, so I had actually finished that entire paragraph, so geez. Anyway, variation in how mass shootings are defined and counted. Okay, so we got Mother Jones, Gun Violence Archive, Mass Shooting Tracker, Mass Shootings in America Database, Supplementary Homicide Reports. Why are you putting Mother Jones, freaking Mother Jones in your graph here. I mean, do you not have any idea of how biased that Mother Jones is actually? I can just smell the bias just by reading the titles of their own articles. I mean, why would you include them in this graph? I mean, they're not exactly objective journalism, so I would not go anywhere near off of their own definition of a mass shooting. All right. So, violation and how mass shootings are defined and counted. Source, Mother Jones. Casualty threshold, 3 fatal injuries, excluding shooter. Oh, brother. That would give you a high number right there alone. Location of incident, public. Motivation of shooter, indiscriminate, excludes crimes of armed robbery, gang violence, or domestic violence. So they do not include those other types of motivations of why the person would go on a mass shooting. Number of U.S. mass shootings in 2015, 7. Okay, that's weird. They have like a very low criteria on who is injured / killed, but yet they also have like a very high criteria on what the motivation of the shooter should be, and they come with this freakishly low number. Well, that's just a little bit surprising to me, just a little bit. Gun violence archive, 4 fatal or non-fatal injuries. Yeah, it's still not showing anything of the 10 deaths that I say defines as a mass shooting personally. Location of incident, any. Motivation of shooter, any. And the number of U.S. mass shootings in 2015, 332. Mass shooting tracker, their criteria of casualty threshold is 4 fatal or non-fatal injuries, including the shooter. Location of incident is any. Motivation of shooter is any. And their number that they get is 371. Mass shootings in America database. 3 fatal or non-fatal injuries, excluding shooter. Location of incident, any. And motivation being not identifiably related to gangs, drugs, or organized crime. 65. Excuse me. Supplementary homicide reports, FBI. The FBI's supplementary homicide reports do not define mass shooting, but do provide information on the number of victims, and the reports have been used by researchers in conjunction with news reports or other data sources. Are mass shootings on the rise? Okay, so this is the big question that I have rolling in my mind, and I'm sure a lot of gun rights advocates as well. Are mass shootings on the rise? In 2014, the FBI released a study showing that active shooting incidents had increased at an average annual rate of 16% between 2000 and 2013. And, you know, let's also keep in mind as well that the number of total gun homicide in the country has been kind of going down ever since the mid-1990s. I provided a source on that in my response video to Superwoman on guns. I cannot remember what the name of the website actually was. I almost want to say that it was the Federalist or something. I don't know. In contrast to the varied definitions of mass shootings, there is an agreed upon definition among government agencies for active shooter. An individual actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area. In most cases, active shooters use firearms, and there's no pattern or method to their selection of victims. Okay. So that's their definition right there. They do not mention a number, though. They just say populated area. Well, who knows? A supposed mass shooter could only kill just one person, and that would be classified as a mass shooting. Under this definition right here, just kill one person in a populated area or highly populated area, and that would classify as a mass shooting. I mean, by that logic, that would mean that we have over 10,000 supposed mass shootings in this country. That doesn't make any sense to me. U.S. Department of Homeland Security 2008 P2, using a modified version of this definition to include incidents that had multiple offenders or occurred in confined spaces. Blair and Schweit, 2014, found that active shootings had increased from only one incident in 2000 to 17 in 2013. All right, Red Feather has said something in chat here. And does the FBI list how many of the shooters were on a list or were supposed to be under FBI investigation? Probably not. I mean, me personally, Red Feather, I don't think that whether or not the shooter was under an FBI investigation or not is relevant to concluding as to whether their actions actually was a mass shooting. Just simply put, the amount of people killed in a single incident by a single mass shooter. The FBI study highlighted several key issues in determining trends in mass shootings. First, the absence of a systematic definition of mass shootings can lead to misinterpretation of reported evidence. Yes. Thank you for espousing what I've been thinking all along. While the study explicitly stated this is not a study of mass killings or mass shootings, extensive media coverage cited the study as evidence of a sharp rise in mass shootings and mass shooting fatalities. However, the definition of an active shooter incident is broader than any of the commonly used criteria for mass shootings. See table above, because it does not set any casualty threshold. Thank you. That was what makes that definition so ambiguous. It doesn't have any casualty threshold. Of the 160 active shooter incidents included in the FBI's analysis, 7% resulted in 0 casualties. Wow. 20% resulted in 0 fatalities, and 22% resulted in a single fatality. Yeah. I mean, especially if you have only one death, that is nowhere mass. Setting a threshold of 0 victims increases the potential for measurement error because shooting incidents with no casualties are more difficult to identify from police records and are less likely to receive media coverage. Additionally, because it should be relatively easier to identify more recent shootings with few fatalities, a low casualty threshold will tend to systematically bias estimates of the number of shootings upward over time. For example, the Stanford Mass Shootings in America database, which relies solely on online media sources to identify mass shooting events, cautions its users. Data in the database spans a time period that includes the transition from traditional media to digital media and reporting. Numbers of incidents per year should at least in part be assumed to reflect this collection methodology and not just changes in incident frequency. Thus, the more than 3-fold surge in mass shooting incidents from 2014 to 2015 shown in the Stanford data likely reflects increased online reporting and not necessarily a true increase in the rate of mass shootings. This is a very good article right here. And I think that sometime in the future, I'm going to have to make a Strike Force editorial of me featuring the highlights of this article or something. What the heck? I think I just had an ad play in my ear or something because I just heard a ding, 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 along with the fuzziness in the background. That was weird. It's kind of jarring. Even when a more restrictive casualty threshold of 4 or more fatally injured victims, excluding the shooter, is imposed, empirical evidence on trends in these incidents varies depending on whether the motivation of the shooter is included as a criterion for considering an event a mass shooting. In their analysis of mass shooting trends from 1999 to 2013, Cross and Richardson 2015 distinguished between mass shootings occurring in public locations that are indiscriminate in nature, mass public shootings, mass shootings in which the majority of victims are members of the offender's family and that are not attributable to other criminal activity, familicide mass shootings. And on that note, I do not really think that it should be relevant or not if the victims were family members of the perpetrator. I don't think that should be a determining factor to how, to what defines as a mass shooting, me personally. And mass shootings that occur in connection to some other criminal activity, other felony mass shootings. The two figures below show trends in these types of mass shooting incidents and fatalities, respectively, using the data provided in Krauss and Richardson 2015. Extending the data back to the 1970s, two studies found evidence of a slight increase in the frequency of mass public shootings over the past 3 decades. Cohen, Ezrael, and Miller 2014, and Krauss and Richardson 2015. However, using an expanded definition that includes domestic or felony-related killings, there is little evidence to suggest that mass shooting incidents or fatalities have increased. Cohen, Ezrael, and Miller 2014. Krauss and Richardson 2015. Fox and Friedel 2016. Thus, different choices about how to define a mass shooting result in different findings for both the prevalence of these events at a given time and whether their frequency has changed over time. All right. So Red Feather says, well, yeah, if we all start calling black cats dogs, there will be an increase in black dogs. Yeah. Well, it is more likely for a person to attack family or someone they know than strangers. Rather than strangers. Right. 1 second. Gonna take a drink of water here. My throat normally feels hoarse when I do these news streams. Trends in mass shooting incidents by type of incident. So you got other felony mass shootings. They put a high number on it. Familicide mass shootings, that's most medium number, and mass public shootings, the lowest. Oh, excuse me. Feeling a little bit tired, I guess. Trends in mass shooting fatalities by type of incident. Why did you like repeat the same graph? I don't get it. That kind of threw me off there. Never mind. Definitional issues aside, the relative rarity of mass shooting events makes analysis of trends particularly difficult. Chance variability in the annual number of mass shooting incidents makes it challenging to discern a clear trend, and trend estimates will be sensitive to outliers and to the time frame chosen for analysis. For example, while Krauss and Richardson 2015 found evidence of an upward trend in mass public shootings from 1999 to 2013, they noted that the increase was driven largely by 2012, which had an unusually high number of mass public shooting incidents. Additionally, Lot 2015 showed that the FBI study's estimate of a dramatic increase in active shooter incidents was largely driven by the choice of 2000 as the starting date, because that year had an unusually low number of shooting incidents, extending the analysis to cover 1977 and onward, and adjusting the data to exclude events with fewer than 2 fatalities. I think you should exclude any events that are fewer than 10 fatalities, in my personal opinion. Definitely fewer than 5. Lot 2015 found a much smaller and statistically insignificant increase than 1% annually in mass shooting fatalities over time. Conclusions. While different choices about how to define a mass shooting and the period over which to calculate mass shooting trends have resulted in disagreement about whether the frequency of mass shootings has risen, there's clear evidence that the media's use of the term mass shooting has increased significantly over recent decades. Roeder 2016. Unfortunately, the ambiguity in how mass shootings are defined and counted may result in increased media coverage, influencing public perception without better informing our understanding of the prevalence of mass shootings or their determinants, trends, social costs, or policy implications. All right. So, yeah, I mean, if you just say on the news, breaking news, another mass shooting in the U.S., people will, any mass shooting is worse than no mass shooting at all. Let's just put it that. Any death is far worse than no death. Let's keep that in mind. But if you just say mass shooting, breaking news, mass shooting in the U.S., then people will get all kind of uppity and emotional to the point of thinking that we need to like push forward some harsh regulation or restriction on guns and gun rights. But if a person was to actually, if the news reporter was to actually say in their news report, and there were only a total of 2 victims in that shooting, well, then people will probably not think so harshly about wanting to regulate and restrict guns. I mean, they'll say, "Oh, well, that's still so bad, but yeah, it's not as bad as I originally thought it was." But I think that when people typically think mass shooting, they think a whole lot more people than just 2, maybe even just more than 8. Red Feather says, "Let's ban murders." Yes, Red Feather, although they already are. The Crusader says, "Gun grabbers are some of the most uninformed and dumbest people I've ever talked to." Get in the stream, Crusader, damn it! Or don't. That's fine too. And by the way, did you see my video of where I helped promote your channel, Crusader? Oh, I guess he did. I just looked at my notification. He says, "Thanks for the shout out again, Zach. Much appreciated." You're welcome. You're welcome, Crusader. Okay. So on to the actual recent shootings themselves. This is an article that I found from Haaretz when I tried to search for information about the 4 shootings. This was like the first article that I could find, honestly. It's a rather new one. I never heard of this, but it was one that was like not mainstream media or clearly biased website that I found. What's up? What's up, JJ?
Okay, I finally joined, and I was only able to join on my phone because I can't do it on my laptop at this point.
Wait. So clicking on the Google Hangouts link on your phone actually worked for you to join this Hangout?
Yeah, sometimes it works, other times it doesn't, but for the most part, it works now.
Damn, I wish I could be the same thing for me so that I could join on my phone whenever I want to. But for some reason, whenever I click on the freaking when I click on the Hangout links, a Hangout link that I'm provided via Twitter or Discord or whatever on my phone, it just brings me to the Google Play Store. It doesn't actually bring me to the Hangout itself. Sucks.
Yeah, that happens to me sometimes.
James Schultz says he gives you an Insta sub. JJ?
Nice. By the way, I saw your shout out video. Thanks again for the shout out.
Oh, you're welcome. Second here, I'm gonna take another drink of my coffee. All right. So now on to the news of the actual shootings themselves. 4 mass shootings rocked the U.S. as Thanksgiving week gets underway. Denver, Chicago, St. Louis, and Philadelphia were all home to gun violence Monday. Red Feather says that maybe Hangouts needs an update, perhaps, so that it's a little bit more consistent with people's phones and whether they can join a Hangout or not. I would definitely be all for that. All right. So here are some of the, well, okay, no, I don't know if that's, never mind. 4 shootings in Chicago hospital, in downtown Denver, in suburban St. Louis, and in a Philadelphia home left 10 people dead, including one of the gunmen and at least 4 people wounded. Okay, so keep in mind, this is not like 10 people per shooting that died. This is just 10 people total in all 4 of the mass shootings, including one of the gunmen. I don't think the gunmen should be like included when it comes to these mass shootings. So in my view, this is just 10 people that died and 1 piece of shit.
Pretty much.
Even then, like, I think that we should just keep that in mind. I mean, the fact that there were 9 people that died nonetheless is still a bad thing, really bad, but still it doesn't like get me all emotional. This doesn't like help play my emotions more to want to actually legislate to restrict people's gun rights. A gunman shot a doctor to death outside a Chicago hospital on Monday before storming the facility and killing a pharmaceutical assistant and a police officer during an exchange of gunfire and dying in the rampage, officials said. The shooter, okay, and by the way, also, for the BLMers right there, there's a cop that died, so in your eyes, that would be 8 people dead. No, I'm joking.
Oh my God.
But no. Obviously, the cop should be counted in that, and it is a terrible thing that the cop died. All right. The shooter knew the doctor he shot outside Mercy Hospital. Oh man. So this is like a personal vendetta for the shooter. Screw you. Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson said at a news conference, describing that initial killing as an act of domestic violence. The gunman was the ex-fiancé of the doctor, Chicago media outlets reported, with one witness saying he demanded a ring back. What?
Okay.
With one witness saying he demanded a ring back. Oh, God. The guy... So the guy does have a little bit more of a motivation, but still, you're psychotic, dude. You're gonna, like, kill somebody over a freaking hoop of jewelry? How petty can you be? I think that person's life is far more valuable than that hoop of jewelry that you want back. I don't care of what you subjectively think about that person there, you piece of shit. Red Feather says, yep, he knew him personally. They conflate that with people shooting strangers. The shooting sent doctors and patients streaming out of the facility, some with their hands up as heavily armed up police officers sought to secure the hospital. The city of Chicago lost a doctor, a pharmaceutical assistant, and a police officer, all going about their day, all doing what they love. Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel told reporters. Okay, I thought Rahm Emanuel was like retired or something, but I guess not. This tears at the soul of our city. It is the face and consequence of evil, Emanuel said. It tears at the soul of your city. Well, my recommendation to you, Ram, how about you allow guns to be owned and possessed within your city so that people can actually defend themselves from the gang members that make your city like one of the highest gun crime cities in America?
Yep.
I mean, if you want to be talking about this tearing at the soul of your city, Red Feather says, must have been a hell of a ring, or must have been one heck of a psychopath looking for that ring. The gunman, after killing the doctor, fired at arriving police officers with a single handgun, Johnson said. The gunman, whose name has not been released, then burst into the hospital. Officers followed him inside and exchanged gunfire with him for several minutes, Johnson said. Officer Samuel Jimenez, who joined the Chicago police force last year, died during the gunfight, officials said. The 28-year-old was married with children and the second Chicago officer killed in the line of duty this year. There's no doubt in my mind that all of those officers who responded were heroes and they saved a lot of lives, because we just don't know how much damage he, the gunman, was prepared to do, Johnson said. And for those saving lives, I salute you. In a sign of the random nature of the rampage, the pharmacy assistant shot by the gunman just happened to be getting off an elevator, Johnson said. Her name has not been released. Local media identified the doctor killed outside the hospital as Tamara O'Neill. Mozilla Firefox critical error. What the heck? I'm trying to read the news here. No. No. Don't tell me. Oh, damn it. Okay, so I'm still live here, but for some reason, Firefox is being a spurg with me. Looks like I'm still live, but can I please get the task manager up? Please and thank you, so I can close down Firefox. Close tabs. There we go. Damn it. That sucks. Now I have to, like, do my whole reset. Now I have to reset things up here. So, hold on a second, y'all. Technical difficulties. I'll set up my other articles a little bit later after we get this this news article done with and out of the way. But for right now, we're just gonna focus on finishing this article. If I can like find where I was again. Redfeather says, "Wow, only the second killed in the line of duty this year in Chicago. That is surprising." And she also says, "Uh-oh," to the little incident that happened on my computer here. Yeah, I don't know what went wrong there. Mozilla Firefox was being overloaded, I guess. Okay. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so this is where we left off right here. The gunman also died, but it was not immediately clear if he shot himself or was struck by a police officer's bullet, Johnson said. Another officer was spared injury when a bullet lodged itself in his holster. In Denver, another shooting left one person dead and 3 others wounded on Monday. At least one suspect remained at large after the shooting on a downtown street corner. Downtown Denver, excuse me. A shooting on a downtown Denver street corner on Monday left one person dead and 4 hospitalized with bullet wounds. As investigators sought at least one suspect still at large, a police spokesman said. Okay, scroll down, please. The survivors were initially reported to be in critical condition, but police later said in a message on Twitter that the injuries were believed to be, page unresponsive. What?
Wait, what?
Page unresponsive? Bullshit, it's unresponsive. I'm still able to, like, scroll up and down. Yeah, sorry, I, like, had technical difficulties on here a little bit earlier. I had Mozilla Firefox crash on me as that was where I was pulling up all the news articles. But we're back on track. So anyway, starting over. The survivors were initially reported to be in critical condition, but police later said in a message on Twitter that the injuries were believed to be non-life-threatening. Fuck you. It's still responsive. And so is my my stream browser, so screw you. Get the fuck out of here. Probably gonna have to, like, close down this. Oh god, get out of my face. I'm gonna have to close down this article as soon as I close it down. JJ, stop rustling around. I can hear you. I can hear you rustling around. Okay. Get out of here. Jeez. Survivors were initially reported to be in critical condition, but police later said in a message on Twitter that the injuries were believed to be non-life-threatening. No further official details were immediately available about the circumstances of the shooting, which erupted about 4 p.m. in the lower downtown area in Denver known as Lodo, a district of hotels, restaurants, and high-rise residential lofts. The area is close to Coors Field, home to Major League Baseball's Colorado Rockies. Get out of here. Jeez, I'm tired of seeing that message. The Denver Post newspaper cited a witness as saying he saw a single gunman open fire with a pistol on a group of people, then get into the driver's seat of his car, slam the door shut, and speed away. The witness added that he heard roughly 6 gunshots and that one person in the crowd fired on returned gunfire at the assailant's car as it drove away. The witness also said that the people targeted by the gunman appeared to be transients or homeless. Get out of here. Denver police initially put the total number of victims at 4. 1 declared dead at the scene. Later, it updated the toll on Twitter, saying 5 people were shot, 1 fatally. The 4 hospitalized were in stable condition, police said. There were no arrests and no word on what might have precipitated the violence. It's playing that ad on the side there for me. No, thank you. There were no arrests and no word on what might have precipitated the violence. Okay. No arrests. One of the gunmen was clearly killed, but what about the other 3 shooters? Were they killed as well? I mean, if they weren't arrested, then that is kind of, quite frankly, what I would hope the least for. We don't know We don't know right now whether there was one shooter or more than one. Denver police spokesman Doug Shepman told reporters, adding that investigators had yet to determine the cause and whether the assailant or assailants knew any of the victims. It's too early to say what happened and why, he added. To have multiple gunshots fired in an area like this is quite concerning. Shepman also acknowledged there had been a homicide a couple of blocks away on Sunday, but added, at this time we do not have information that connects these two incidents. All right. Red Feather says in the chat, can't you restore your tabs? No, I can't, Red Feather, because I switched from Mozilla Firefox to using Google Chrome to browse these news articles instead of. But yeah. So he fired 6 shots and shot 4 people. Damn. Yeah. St. Louis shooting at Catholic store. Police in suburban St. Louis on Monday were searching Monday for a gunman who went into a religious supply store, sexually assaulted at least one woman, and shot a woman in the head. Police said the shooting later died at a hospital. Yeah. Pretty fucked up. So you have both a case of sexual assault and a homicide. Rape homicide.
Yeah.
2 victims involved.
That's bad.
The shooting happened about 3:15 p.m. at a Catholic supply of St. Louis store in western St. Louis County, near the town of Baldwin. Police were looking for a man about 5'7" with a heavy build and said he should be considered armed and dangerous. The gunman walked into the store and sexually assaulted at least one woman. Police spokesman Sean McGuire said he couldn't confirm media reports that more than one woman was assaulted. It wasn't clear why the store was targeted, and McGuire didn't know if its religious affiliation was a factor. Our hearts go out to the victims of this horrific tragedy at Catholic Supply, St. Louis Archbishop Robert Carlson said on Twitter. Okay. It was starting to become unresponsive right there. McGuire said that the woman who died did not know the suspect. Obviously, that adds to the intensity of our search, McGuire said. The shooting happened at a strip mall in an affluent area of suburban St. Louis along Manchester Road, one of the most congested roadways in the region. McGuire said the heavy volume of traffic only made finding the suspect more difficult. So it's likely that the guy could have easily gotten away. Jeez. Obviously, someone could blend in pretty easily, he said. Catholic Supply at St. Louis, Inc. operates 3 stores specializing in church supplies for parishes as well as Catholics. The company's website says it also publishes national supply catalogs. Baldwin is about 25 miles, 40 kilometers west of St. Louis. Philadelphia executions. 2 men and 2 women were found shot and killed in a basement of a house being renovated on Monday. Police received a call in the morning to check on the welfare of people at the house after a family member arrived to find the door ajar. Responding officers found the 4 in the basement, each with a single gunshot wound in the head. Sadly, all 4 of these individuals were executed. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, Police Commissioner Richard Ross said. There is an absolutely evil thing to do. There's no way in the world people should have met their demise this way. It appears as if the 4 were led to the basement, he said, because their hands and feet weren't bound. There were no obvious signs of a struggle inside the home, he said. 2 of the victims were a 31-year-old man and a 20-year-old woman. The others are described as a man approximately 20 to 30 years old and a woman approximately 30 to 40 years old. No names were released. The 2 men are believed to be cousins who were living in the home while it was being renovated, Ross said. End of article. So Red Feather says, so there are no surveillance cameras around there? I don't know, Red Feather. It doesn't, the article did not say, so I would probably presume no. If it's not being mentioned, then probably not. Okay, I'm gonna close down this article because Haaretz is just giving me a headache right now. All right. What do you have to say, JJ?
That's fucked up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what was the next article that I was want to go on?
Why pineapple pizza is better than any other pizza?
No, Meat Lovers is better. And Supreme.
Sure.
Yes, it's a fact, JJ. You will accept it or I'll suffer the consequences.
Okay.
Say right now that pineapple pizza is not the best in the world, or else.
Yeah, I'm not scared of that. I know that's an orange tip.
It's supposed to be a prop. I mean, yeah.
It'd be better prop if you just painted over that.
All right, right. Do you accept that pineapple pizza is not the best?
Nope.
There we go. Hashtag pineapple-less pizza, says Red Feather. Yes, pineapple-less pizza. Pineapples do not belong on pizza.
Yes, I do.
I will say, honestly, that pineapple on pizza is not the absolute worst thing in the world, but it's still not, certainly not my go-to. It just doesn't jive well with
it's
me.
an acquired taste.
Oh, it's an acquired taste, I see.
Yeah, because it's a mixture of sweet and savory and sweet and salty.
It's a little bit too much on the sweet side. If I wanted any kind of sweet on my pizza, it would be like bell peppers, tomatoes, or the juices from the pepperoni and sausage.
Really? Tomatoes? Ooh.
Well, tomatoes are kind of sweet-ish.
Yeah, I think yeah, they kind of are a little bit.
Okay. I'm gonna get myself reset up here. That are all the articles that I wanted to go over right now. Okay, so there was also this one right here. Hopefully, Aspie will arrive for this one other article that I'll be reading. It's one about Thanksgiving and Native American genocide.
The Native Americans should have been killed quicker.
Then you would have never been born, dude.
I'm fine with that.
I suggest you get help.
Yeah, probably.
Oh boy, no, definitely.
I'm just gonna tell you, I'll be leaving in about 30 minutes to go help my parents do some stuff.
All right, that's fine. Red Feather says, "Say it, or he will shoot his webcam."
Yes, shoot his webcam and have to replace it.
No. You don't understand, Red Feather. I have those special webcams of where that if I was to start going more and more towards the lens here, I can actually go through it and into JJ's
that's
world.
Creepy, Zach. Please stop. Please stop. That's actually creepy.
Okay. And so if I actually did have a real gun right here and actually shot somebody through the through my webcam, the bullet would actually pass through. Or if I was to actually poke this thing right through the webcam. No, never mind. I don't know where I was going with that. I think the comedy is starting to die down, and we should just get on with the news here. I think I'll put that for last block. All right, so midterm elections are far out of our way now, and hopefully the final results are still in without any more recounts going on. So In news connected to the midterm elections, or at least being connected to the midterm elections by the Foundation for Economic Education, they go talking about why the midterm results could be good news for trade. And of course, we have been recently reading a whole lot about economics and more specifically about tariffs and free trade. I know that S-Man has been on S-Man Live, and good on him for that. And this is going to be like another article that I'll be talking about that, hopefully like reaffirming our beliefs for free trade. So the biggest short-term question will be what happens to the renegotiated NAFTA, called the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. All right.
You know what, Zach? I'm going to get going. I need to probably go hurry up and help my parents.
All right, that's fine.
All right. See you, man.
See you later. All right. So anyway, trade was a highly contentious issue during President Trump's first 2 years. He has doubled tariffs. Other countries have enacted equivalent retaliatory tariffs, trade wars, in other words. And tensions are unlikely to ease anytime soon. This unease will not change under a newly divided Congress. The midterm elections will have significant implications for trade policy in the short, medium, and long runs. The biggest short-term question will be what happens to the renegotiated NAFTA, called the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. Congress is currently in the middle of a 90-day window to vote on the revised agreement, but Republicans are lukewarm on it. Many Republicans share economists' skepticism of President Trump's trade protectionism. At the same time, they are reluctant to buck a Republican president. Some Republicans have even gone one further and reverse their stances on trade and other issues in deference to the president, Lame duck Republicans will likely punt to the next Congress in an attempt to avoid cognitive dissonance. Okay. Red Feather says, bye, Crusader, and I got myself a new notification. Oh. I see Effeminate Degenerate has liked one of my replies to her. All right. But anyway, that's where the new Democratic House majority comes in. The new NAFTA USMCA changes very little in terms of actual trade policy, but it has significant symbolic value as a political victory for President Trump. Democrats would love to deny Trump this victory, but they will also be reluctant to cause further tensions with Canada and Mexico's governments. Staunch allies, which endured many slights during the negotiating process, both domestically and from President Trump. They would like to have something to show for their indignities, even if it's just getting President Trump out of their hair for a bit, or getting them out of President Trump's hair. This could push foreign policy-minded Democrats in favor of passing NAFTA USMCA. At this point, it is hard to predict which impulse is stronger. So, you know about how S-Man keeps on saying that Republicans are being well, okay. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but if I recall exactly what he said, he's been saying that free trade, Republicans have been showing themselves to be more and more against it. I don't know necessarily of how for free trade that Democrats are. So that, oh God, I lost my place. Oh, there it is. So I do not know of how well Democrats would actually push for free trade and against Donald Trump on his anti-free trade positions and pro-tariff positions. This is also partially because Democrats are just as divided as Republicans on trade issues. Okay, there's what I've been thinking all along this whole time. Foundation for Economic Free Education has just confirmed for me as to how Democrats and Republicans are both mixed when it comes to free trade. Excuse me. Probably should have muted myself for that one. Traditional Democrats often favor a more or less open approach to trade, not terribly different from the average pre-Trump Republican. The original NAFTA and the creation of the World Trade Organization happened under Bill Clinton, and President Obama signed about half a dozen trade agreements that liberalized trade on net. Okay, yeah, and that is one thing that I will definitely say that both Bill and even Obama were fairly right-leaning on is free trade, whereas Trump is a little bit more left-leaning than them on that issue. I mean, I don't admit that. I do not say that Obama is a right-winger like a whole lot of moderate and far leftists want to insist on. I just don't. But there's one thing that I will definitely admit that he is fairly right-leaning on: free trade. Going further back, President Kennedy signed a major trade bill in 1962 that led to a successful round of international negotiations bearing his name that sharply reduced tariffs around the world. Franklin D. Roosevelt's Secretary of State, Cordell Hull, presciently argued that if goods do not cross borders, soldiers will. Is that a threat? Is that a threat, Mr. Hull? Because it damn well sounds like a threat. I mean, I'm all for free trade, but I'm not for enforcing free trade upon other nations to the point that we have to go invading them and say, you shall accept free trade or die. Democrats have slowly become more protectionist in recent years, with Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York, even arguing for a 27.5 blanket tariff against Chinese goods in the mid-2000s. This makes him roughly 2.5 percentage points different from President Trump, which sounds about right. But Trump's vocal advocacy of government-managed trade has pushed many Democrats somewhat back towards the free trade side. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's because Democrats are necessarily principled on free trade that they're actually for free trade. I think they're just anti-Trump is the biggest reason why they are claiming to be pro-free trade. Red Feather asks, have we ever really had free trade? I don't know. Screw Chuck Schumer. Yeah, screw him, because he's, for one thing, he's aligning with Trump when it comes to free trade. And yeah, honestly, I don't know much about the reputation of Chuck Schumer, whereas I can name off some things that I don't like about Dianne Feinstein, primarily her stances on gun rights. I mean, that's a staple issue for her, is pushing for gun control massively. And I think she's espoused some rather pro-choice positions on abortion as well, so yeah. Red Feather says, yes, their slogan is Orange Man Bad. Being a bunch of NPCs about it too. All right. At the same time, the party's labor and environmental wings tend to oppose free trade. Labor interests often see protectionism as a rent-seeking opportunity to kneecap competitors. These are people openly advocating for plutocracy, openly advocating for the economic game to be rigged in their favor. Many environmental activists reflexively oppose policies that create wealth and development. The party's ideological left flank also tends towards protectionism. Senator Bernie Sanders, independent of Vermont, is uncomfortably similar to President Trump on trade. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that even President Trump had said for himself in the aftermath of his battle with Ted Cruz, when it was obvious that he was going to become the general election Republican candidate for president. He was all like, there's one thing that me and Bernie are similar on, and that is trade. And I think that the Bernie supporters, more of them will go for me because of trade, you know. In the medium term, between now and the 2020 election, President Trump hopes to pursue trade agreements with the United Kingdom, European Union, and Japan. As with NAFTA, USMCA, House Democrats will be eager to deny President Trump a political victory. Hello, Westman.
Hey, hi. Hey, how's it going?
You still sound sick.
Really?
Damn. I
Damn.
don't know. You just sounded kind of stuffed up there.
Oh. Yeah, I guess I am just a tad.
So,
did I share this article? Because it looks. Well, I think I may have read this before.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but looks
It's
interesting.
Foundation for Economic Education. Why the midterm results could be good news for trade.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I used one of their articles. This wasn't the one, but yeah, they have some pretty interesting pieces out there.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it just I mean, what is it that you say exactly about Republicans regarding their free trade positions?
It's not it's very protectionist. I think their platform also is if I'm not mistaken, didn't it have something to do with it? They think the United States could have a closed economy. I mean, I think it's
I don't know.
possible. I think it's possible to have a closed economy, although I don't think it would be as sufficient as a open economy like what we should have. And I don't know. I just found it very irritating that they'll take a free. They want to have a free market approach on things, but they don't want to have a free market approach with trade.
Right.
And
Red Feather says hello to you, by the way.
oh, hello, Red Feather.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's possible to have a closed economy as well, but I'm not. But I'm not for it.
Yeah, I'm not either.
And whatever the platform of whatever the Republican Party website says about their actual platform, honestly, when it comes to analyzing the political beliefs of parties, I don't really go for what their platform states because a lot of times the politicians themselves within the party as a whole will not be consistent with their own platform. I just go off of the reputation of the party members themselves as a whole.
I mean, I'm gonna make a little confession here. If I went off of just parties and like if I had to be a Republican, I'd probably be a liberal or moderate Republican.
Right.
Or if I was a Democrat, like an actual Democrat, I would be a very libertarian Democrat. Apparently, there is at least one in the Senate. I can't remember. I think it was Cory Booker. They call him a libertarian Democrat, which
What?
yeah, I'm gonna have to really look into that because I'm having a hard time believing that. But I
I
mean,
I mean,
I
I don't know much about Cory Booker myself, but I call always just given Kyle Kalinske the benefit of the doubt that the guy was actually a corporate Democrat.
I'd have to again check.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't really trust Kyle Kalinske as a reliable news source, but I've just given the benefit of the doubt that Cory Booker is actually a plutocrat. But that's
Again, I'd have to check.
all
Also,
right.
holy shit, your stream has a ton of dislikes on it. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know what is up with that. I said earlier in this stream that those 6 dislikes were from before I had actually gone live here. I do not know what the fuck happened. Like I just don't know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I have a whole bunch of loyal haters or something that were just all like, I don't care of what this guy is gonna say. Just dislike, dislike, dislike. But I had 2 options. Either A, I could have like gotten rid of the fake dislikes by deleting this stream before it went live and starting a new one. Or B, I could have utilized dislikes as part of the algorithms for this stream to help promote it. I decided this time to do the latter.
Genius.
But if I was to do the former, I don't think it would necessarily be a super Weasley or cowardly of me for me to delete this stream because they're just fake dislikes. They're just dislikes for the sake of dislikes. But anyway, like you go mentioning about the Republicans' position on trade issues. I've always thought that both Republicans and Democrats were kind of mixed, or at least in recent months and years, anyways. And apparently, Foundation for Economic Education kind of thinks the same right here.
I mean, sometimes no, they can be pretty divided, and that's an interesting thing that like the factions and how they might disagree on something. Some Democrats used to take a pretty free trade approach, like like of the Clinton era with the New Democrats and NAFTA, and then now you got the more progressive types like
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders and people like him, and Sherrod Brown, Senator of Ohio, several Democrats who are very protectionist, do not like NAFTA. Donald Trump, when he first ran for president officially in 2000, opposed NAFTA, but wanted universal health care. And very interesting platform, but but yeah, Democrats can be pretty divided on trade, just like Republicans.
Yeah.
Which I think it'd be actually really cool. You get a protectionist Republican, kind of like when not Bernie Sanders, when two Republicans in the Senate, Lindsey Graham and Rand Paul, were debating Guantanamo Bay, just like when you had Senators Ted Cruz and Bernie Sanders debate healthcare. Two Republicans and two Democrats should debate trade. I think that would be a pretty cool thing to see.
Right. And also, I know that you have like a high distaste for one of these people that I'm about to mention, but for every Donald Trump that you have on free trade, you have a Ted Cruz, because I recall like in his debate against Beto, he said that he was more for free trade, and that's kind of one of the issues that he more butts heads with Trump on.
So at least Ted Cruz has some sensibility on trade. So that at least gives me some comfort. But can I just say something? I'm not the United States Mexico Canada trade agreement, or USMCA, doesn't it sound just like NAFTA itself? Does it sound like
I honestly don't know.
It sounds because I saw a video, and the channel it was hosted from, I normally take them with a grain of salt, but they've been making some really good videos lately. Like, oh fuck it, I'll just say it. It was Vox. So I'm thinking, okay.
S-Man, why?
I don't want to be in the echo chamber, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go watch this video about trade. I'll do that. I'll at least not be in the echo chamber. So I listened to it, and I'm like, okay, they're showing their stats, they're showing their evidence, and they mentioned something about trade, and they said that, and I'd seriously recommend everyone go watch it, because they used a toy Mustang car as their example. They're like, okay, so for an actual Mustang, all these parts would be made in some of the United States and some of the other nations, and Donald Trump is going to make the quotas and the tariffs really, really strict. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but if it goes below certain percentage points for what was made in each country, then you might get a tariff of 2.5% or not.
I just read something in the chat, by the way. Red Feather says that I should disavow you and ban you, S-Man.
Well, fight me, Red Feather. Disavow! No Vox! Bass S-Man!
You made it when the haters come and dislike you before you start, says Red Feather. Yes. I've actually been growing a little bit more of a, I guess, a dislike base, because my one response video to both Superwoman and No Bullshit, like the first day that it was released, or at least the first 2 days it was released, it got a dislike. There was the stream on Sargon of Akkad versus Mr. Medicare. 2 dislikes before it even went live. And then it got another dislike from an Owen fan, I think, just because of the title itself. I don't even think they might have even bothered watching the stream. And then there was the 2 dislikes underneath my video actually addressing Owen's strawman and smears, But yeah, I mean, me personally, you said something about you don't want to be in the echo chamber. Me personally, I think I would, if I wanted like a difference in opinion on something, I would probably honestly go to, I don't know, somebody like Kyle Kulinski on that. I mean, I cannot stand the guy, but at least he has more brain cells than most of the people at Vox, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I saw their playlist. I decided, because I only read their articles, not listened to their videos, and I noticed they had a lot of videos on economics, so that could be a treasure trove of. And there's already a few I'm already having a problem with, so I'm probably gonna do some videos in Vox. And then there's foreign policy, then like other issues where they talked about Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. So those videos are irrelevant to me, but there may be some good material for response videos. But they mentioned several good takes on the issues, like you shouldn't compare Donald Trump to Richard Nixon. Like it's not a good. It's rather counterproductive.
Right. I mean, I don't think it's quite comparable, because I think, yeah, Trump is definitely more right-leaning than Nixon when it comes to economics. Safe to say. I mean, whereas Nixon founded the EPA and OSHA and all the rest of them, Trump has cut thousands of pages of regulations within his first 100 days as president.
Also, Nixon kind of sounded sympathetic to universal basic income, but when I'm talking about comparing Trump and Nixon, that means more out of are about corruption and things like that. Like, there's a problem with comparing what Nixon had done with the media regarding what Trump's doing with the media. There's a bit of a problem with trying to compare it.
Right.
But yeah.
Red Feather says that she meant to say bad and not ban or bass S-man.
Bass S-man!
Bass S-man. Yeah, you're a bass fish now.
Yes, they should. I should get to making merch that you can fish with, so we can fish the people who dislike the stream out of the shadows and have them debate us. No, I'm kidding.
Yes,
but
you know what would be interesting is if sometime I had like just a call-in episode of Strike Force here, just for like anybody who like disagrees with me on something or has a question for me on something that I said in the past. They could like come in that said stream and just we'll discuss the disagreements with one another. Cult of Ham would be all over that. All over that.
Oh yeah, he'd be like, the free market fails, the free market fails. Don't you dare mention the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. And don't you dare mute me when I'm muting you because I don't want to hear what you have to say.
What? Metal Minister is in the chat. He says, well, I just joined. Still no notifications when you go live. Did you turn on did you not like turn on the bell notification button, Metal Minister? Did you not click that? Anyway, I'll wait for him to respond on that. In the meantime, let's continue on with this article. In the medium term, between now and the 2020... Wait, did I already read that?
You highlighted it.
I think I might have like read half of it, but the other half I might have not finished. But anyway, we'll just start over. In the medium term, between now and the 2020 election, President Trump hopes to pursue trade agreements with the United Kingdom, European Union, and Japan. As with NAFTA, USMCA, House Democrats will be eager to deny President Trump a political victory. Not necessarily because they're pro-free trade, but because they're anti-Trump, like I said earlier. The question is whether Democrats can overcome their own protectionist elements enough to be an effective opposition party. Yeah, like Bernie Sanders, for example. I mean, Bernie Sanders, he may be just one guy, but he holds a high influence on what happens with the Democratic Party, safe to say.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be really bizarre because, you know, with the Democratic majority in the House and an increasing Republican majority in the Senate, it's going to be really interesting. I mean, I'm glad it resulted in the results were this way rather than a 218 to 217 House for the Democrats and a 50-50 Senate balance for the Republicans and Democrats. That would be utter hell.
All right. He says also 4 shootings in one day. Were you in Chicago? No, I was not, Metal Minister. We read an article a little bit earlier from Haaretz. I will be putting the links of these articles in the description box below after we've gone off air. But that was where I got the news from, and it's like from no, was it Pittsburgh? I don't know. It's Denver, Chicago, St. Louis, and I think it might have been Pittsburgh or something like that. But it was like 4 different cities that had suffered like, I would say, supposed major shootings, because all these major shootings, they had like a death of less than, or 4 people or less than that in each one of them, to a total of like 10 deaths, including one of the shooters. So if you want to be technical, it was really just 9 deaths and 1 piece of shit. So yeah. So it isn't that high of a death rate. I mean, obviously no death is better than any death at all, but still, I mean, if you look at the actual numbers of how many people are killed in these shootings, it doesn't really pull my heartstrings enough to want to curb everyone else's gun rights because 4 people collectively killed 9 people. He says that he also hit the bell. I hate YouTube. And Red Feather says, also, you have to make sure the notifications are for all. Sometimes unsubbing and resubbing helps, but I think YouTube just sucks. And Metal Minister says he totally agrees with her. All right, continuing on. The biggest long-term policy that could come out of the new congressional alignment is similar to the biggest possible upside to regulatory reform, a renewed separation of powers. Under the Constitution, only Congress has the power to tax. But Congress delegated away much of its tariff-setting authority to the president during the 1960s and 1970s. That is how President Trump was able to enact so many tariffs without congressional input. Democrats should rein in a too powerful executive branch and reclaim Congress's intended constitutional taxing authority. And, you know, now that I think about it, that's actually is something interesting. I mean, I don't think that Democrats actually truly stand for free trade or limited government or a limited executive branch more specifically, but I think because of how much they hate Trump, they might actually end up pushing against some of this stuff right here. They might rein in the executive branch just because they don't want Trump to have that power. They might actually go against his anti-free trade positions. And even though that their motivations are not the same as my own, ultimately their actions will be of the same end goal that people like me and S-Man want. And that is more of a free trade policy.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's going to be very bizarre to see how these next 2 years turn out, because let's assume he gets reelected. You know, the Democrats won't have very long until then. So to me, this is exactly the same stupid shit that's going to get Donald Trump reelected. Is to, all right, if the executive branch is too powerful, sure, rein it in. I'm totally, if they end up going with minimal government, that's great by me. But I think the Democrats are going to lean more into a protectionist mindset, especially if the progressive wing keeps taking over the party like they keep trying to.
Yeah. But also, let's also keep in mind that this is just talking about free trade. It's not talking about the other major issues that might be tackled by a Democrat House and a Republican Senate. Like President Trump will be like a lone wolf, like trying to fight against both establishment GOP people and a Democrat-controlled House when it comes to immigration, just as an example on that.
Yeah.
Who knows what might happen to gun legislation if we get like a major mass shooting that adds up to almost 20 people. Who knows how that fight will go down?
Oh yeah, and yeah, this whole thing is going to be I think that it's probably going to be gridlock, and there's going to be hell for the next 2 years. But with Congress, you know, yeah, Donald Trump already has to fight a two-front war. I explained that in my video asking whether or not he could get reelected. But he's going to have to fight a two-front war against the type of Republicans he doesn't like and the Democrats. And I think that, you know, I think the GOP is going to have a bit of a come-to-Jesus meeting after, well, some of Donald Trump's actions with their party and what he did with them during this election. So this is going to be a very bizarre few years, especially on issues like immigration. I don't think the border wall is ever going to happen.
Yeah, safe to say... at least not for the next 2 years, now that the Democrats have the House to, like, obstruct the funding for that wall. Metal Menace, Red Feather says, no Dems always want more government control, it seems. I would say that ultimately, in the end, okay, establishment GOP people want more government as well, more government control as well. Let's keep that in mind. But Dems, ultimately, in the end, also want more government control. So I don't think that they want to like go against Trump and Trump's own big government individual policies. They'll go against just because it's Trump. I mean, but ultimately, in the end, they probably still do want big government. Just they want it in their own control, not in Trump's control. And Metal Minister says, I prefer the government like it will be in January. Total gridlock. The less they mess with my life, the better. Obstructionism for the win, y'all. Anyway, trade will be a busy issue for at least the next 2 years, along with immigration, I would say. Unlike their Republican colleagues, the new Democratic House majority can be an effective check against President Trump's government-managed trade policies, but they have to keep their own populist impulses in check in order to do so effectively. Perhaps Lane or Ian, how do you pronounce that? Ian. Murray's and my Traders of the Lost Ark can serve as a guide, as well as excellent primers by Don Bedreau and Pierre Lemieux. How do you pronounce that? There's a lot of French names here.
Too many French names. Hashtag ban all French names, guys.
All right. So we're going to be like sticking on the issue of trade as we go to Washington Examiner, talking about an article that says I guess this is like a statement from China. Trump vandalized World Trade Organization rules by imposing tariffs. This will be interesting. Now, I'm not much of a person that is for appeal to law, but we're just going to like read this for the sake of argument as China makes their own appeal to law.
Yeah.
All right.
God, they choose so many unflattering images of President Trump.
Yeah, I mean, the guy gets more wrinkly in this area and more baggy and gobblenecky in this area as the months go by.
Oh God, he'll look like what's his name, Mitch McConnell when he leaves office, and Mitch McConnell's like the most ugly senator out there.
Oh yeah, I've always made the comment that his face looks like a deflated whoopee cushion.
Oh Jesus Christ!
That's literally what he looks like. He looks like a freaking whoopee cushion. Oh God, his face does. Anyways,
Rip.
man, it's a very short. This is a very short article, but yeah, he's a beanpole with a whoopee cushion on top. All right, so China's Ministry of Commerce accused President Trump on Thursday of ignoring World Trade Organization rules when he imposed tariffs against China and other countries without first getting permission from the international organization. Okay, and I will say that opening up that China should make more of a principled and philosophical argument against Trump and his push on tariffs, rather than an appeal to law argument against Trump's tariffs. The way that I argue against Trump's tariffs, and so does S-Man here as well, my co-host, is that we argue off of principle, not off of international law when it comes to tariffs.
Yeah.
Oh, and also practice of it, as S-Man constantly mentioned in one of his recent episodes of S-Man Live, as to how badly tariffs would hurt the economy or have hurt the economy in the past.
And why, same with other type of things Trump's done with bailing out farmers, and I mentioned a few other administrations as good examples of when they try to play games with the economy, and that's essentially what he's doing, is playing games with the economy, and it's like playing with a loaded gun, just not a good idea.
Mm. All right. China has emphasized many times that the investigation and measures the U.S. took are based on its domestic laws and are to implement unilateralism and protectionism, which has violated every promise it has made to the World Trade Organization members and has ignored and vandalized the rules and regulations, said ministry spokesman Gao Feng. To argue for devil's advocate here, though, Trump might say, I did not promise to hold up these rules. A past president promised to hold up these rules. Which is the thing that people should really keep in mind when it comes to the United States practices, is that President Trump is not responsible for the foreign policy issues that President Obama formally put in place during his administration.
Yeah, same with the presidents that are his predecessors. Although I can only imagine the type of mess any president would walk into if they were elected after W. Like, that's not your fault, but that's a whole mess you got to clean up.
Gao was responding. Okay, Gao Feng. So Gao, they're talking about not the Government Accountability Office. They're talking about the person here, a spokesman for China, because there is an actual organization called Gao, Government Accountability Office, here in the United States. But Gao, the Chinese spokesman, was responding to an update on the Trump administration's push to impose tariffs against China. The administration says China continues to flaunt intellectual property rights rules and requires U.S. companies to produce goods in China as a condition of selling there. The administration's updated report said that despite several rounds of bilateral negotiations, China has still failed to take any substantive actions to address U.S. concerns. The Trump administration is threatening to impose tariffs on all Chinese imports without improvement. But Gao said the update. Wait, what? That's a bit of a typo there. But Gao said the update was a new round of groundless accusations against China, and China will not accept it, according to China's state-run news outlet China Daily. The trade war. What?
State-run news. Oh, great.
Yeah. The trade war between the U.S. and China is one of several reasons why the U.S. stock market has struggled this year. However, President Trump said Thursday in Florida that he continues to think China wants to find a way out of the fight. China very much wants to take a deal, he said. End of article. And I don't that much care for the stock market, just in my personal opinion. But ultimately, I mean, there might be a slight bit of legitimacy in the economics of it, but here's the thing. It's still a reason for why that Trump should probably not impose these tariffs, you know?
Yeah. We got into not you and me, but me and Ham and Humane got into an argument about the next topic here, as to the cause of everything. But yeah, I just think that, you know.
Yeah, I think Humane pulverized Ham in that.
Yeah, I think that Humane definitely gave him a piece of his mind about that issue, and Ham was unable to respond. But
although I will add a caveat that Ham mentioned the idea of the sanctions being put on Venezuela, and of holding Humane's feet to the fire on that issue, saying, "Aren't you all for free markets and free trade? Shouldn't you be against these sanctions?" And then Humane actually addressed that concern by saying, "Okay, so we lift the sanctions, and then no corporations trade with Venezuela. What was accomplished in that?" I will applaud Ham for posing that question to Humane. That was kind of something that was a little bit of a red flag in my opinion, but still, I think that Humane overtook Ham on that. And really, again, I said this consistently about Humane within this last year. He should stick to economics. That's his strong suit. Social issues, nobody really likes him on. But anyway, you were wanting to say something?
Yeah, but when we look at trade and everything, and this kind of talks about trade in this article. We might talk about it, considering that's an issue with Venezuela. Is I don't really consider a sanction to be protectionist. You're not trading with them, period. And I think I could justify sanctions depending on the context of the situation. But I think in general, that's really the issue at hand with these trade these trade deals, and is thinking, is this country really worth us trading with? To me, as long as they can, as long as we can avoid trade deficits and they can have their markets be just as open as ours, then that's great. And I've always considered it to not be the fault of other countries when it comes to trade. Like, if they're able to produce something better than we can, or even cheaper than we can, and that's how they're able to make their money, then that's a sign that we need to step up to the plate, and we need to revamp American products and make it more appealing to the average buyer.
Mm-hmm. All right. So getting on with it. Again, going back to the Foundation for Economic Education, a very insightful website that I am seeing so far. Venezuela reveals a natural progression of democratic socialism. And of course, that one will be reading Not True Socialism.
NotTrueSocialism.com, you fascist.
Yeah, and I got the P coat to confirm my fascism, as it looks like one of those fascist commanders' trench coats. I'm also wearing an AC/DC t-shirt underneath this.
Ocasio-Cortez and Darkon t-shirt, got it. But everyone, look! I can see a Pepe the Frog flag pin on Darkon's trench coat.
Oh god, that was one of the things that he was mentioning in one of his recent live streams, and honestly, I couldn't take that live stream. He was mentioning Pepe is one of the ways that Nazis or fascists or whatever will convey their message. I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, really, dude? A good portion of people, yes, I will not deny that neo-Nazis and alt-righters probably have it as their own symbol for alt-rightism and neo-Nazism. But at the same time, what about all the people that just use it to troll people? I mean, do you really think that Sargon is an alt-right neo-Nazi? Or how about our friend Brandon Padgett? Is he an alt-right neo-Nazi? I don't think so. I mean, Sargon has his major flaws, don't get me wrong, but considering the fact that he has gotten into many scuffles with the alt-right within this recent year, I think it's safe to say that the guy is not an alt-right neo-Nazi for fuck's sake.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Venezuela reveals the natural progression of democratic socialism. Venezuela shows that socialism requires time to reduce a prosperous economy to misery and rule over its ruins. A Venezuelan opposition socialist affirming that our tragedy is not the result of applying a revolutionary contemporary socialist program is invaluable to the leftist U.S. press. Politicians and intellectuals are stifled by the Castroite intelligentsia of my country, and above them stands a supposedly moderate columnist at a flagship organization of leftist American news. A useful idiot, excuse me. Francisco Toro, writing in the Washington Post, tries to whitewash socialism in the wake of the destruction of Venezuela. He sends a message to true believers of the cause, from violent hooded fanatics behind Soviet flags to eternally offended worshippers of the ultra-left Senator Sanders or the comparatively moderate followers of Hillary Clinton. Okay, Hillary Clinton, I cannot, in all good faith, call her leftist. I mean, when she claimed that she wanted free college and free health care for the people of the United States, there was I think, a WikiLeaks that showed that she was actually faking that, where she said, I'm only claiming these positions to get elected. That thought to me, oh yeah, this bitch is a fraud. I think she's an A-principled centrist, in my opinion. And as far as ultra-left Senator Sanders, yes, he is ultra-left relative to the United States, but he's moderate left in comparison to the entire world.
Yeah, and compared to the rest of the world, he's probably also
one second.
Insane. Up, guys, Dark Khan has left the building, so yeah, and compared to
all right, sorry for a second there. I thought I heard my sister knocking on my door, but I guess not. I'm looking at the chat here, and Red Feather says, well, yeah, according to Obama, everything going on with the current economy is his doing. State-run internet also in China. And S-Man Speaks plays the good old Obama quote, the socialistic quote from Obama. You didn't build that.
There's actually a song, a remix, and you got to listen to it. It's pretty funny.
Oh, God. Do I really want to put myself through that pain?
It's hilarious. They take a remix clip of Obama saying, you didn't build that, when you're supposed to say, you can't touch this. Oh, it was so funny.
Red Feather says, yes, she says whatever she wants people want to hear. Exactly. So I don't call, I mean, the followers of Hillary Clinton might be moderate leftists or center leftists, but they're being duped as far as what her policies are. Her policies are not what you actually want, Hillary voters.
Yeah.
Just saying. Anyway. Tell that to Secular Hawk, but he probably won't believe it and will continue to worship her clit.
You sexist! You said her private parts. That's him. Jesus Christ.
The official chronicler of the destruction of Venezuela at the hands of socialism now pleases the journalistic and cultural elites by saying Venezuela is not the idea context in which to examine the effects of socialism. These minor arguments, okay, it might not be accurate for the end goal of what people want as far as socialism goes, but it is an accurate analysis as to how people will or can attain socialism. There are two ways that you could go about it. You could do the Marxist, Leninist, Bolshevik, Vladimir Lenin way of doing it and just violently overthrow the bourgeoisie, or you could take the Venezuela approach and nationalize huge sections of your economy, like the oil industry, for example. That's another way of approaching it, and that shows that, that doesn't work out.
Yeah, they nationalized their oil, and they made a lot of money off of the oil, and then they started spending it. Like that soda tax in Washington State, they started to spend quite a bit, and unlike I don't know how it completely turned out in Washington State, but with Venezuela, with their oil money, they didn't think about the future. They didn't think this can't last forever. And then they started to go into then the economy started to collapse because they couldn't afford to keep up these welfare programs from the last president they had, who I would call a socialist for sure. He was doing land and wealth redistribution, And then he died in office in 2013, if I'm not mistaken. And then
Right.
Nicholas, I don't know, Maduro, I don't know.
Maduro, yeah, that's the name, Nicolas Maduro.
Maduro took power, and Venezuela and Brazil are going to be fucked up countries for a while, especially Brazil. But Venezuela, he held a sham election to determine if they should get rid of their old government and get a new government. The turnout was abysmal, and somehow he was able to declare victory. I don't even remember the results, but yeah, Venezuela is a shithole.
You racist. Use that term to define a third world country.
I'm sorry, guys. I should check my privilege. No, fuck that shit.
All right. So anyway, these minor arguments between believers matter. He can make his case without pushback. It is what they want to hear. For the mainstream media, it all boils down to he is in Venezuela, and he is saying it was not socialism that caused this ongoing tragedy. In the United States, more than in the rest of the world, the socialists, even radicals, flee from the pestilence and death of Chavismo that they happily applauded yesterday, and today they hypocritically condemn it. I mean, yeah, there's clips of Bernie Sanders actually praising Hugo Chavez and what was done in Venezuela, and then suddenly, not a sound. Like, how good is Venezuela doing now, Bernie? Not a peep.
Yep.
Anyway, the Venezuelan tragedy shows how a revolutionary socialist order that came to power in competitive elections can, in appropriate conditions, advance to totalitarianism. It demonstrates how it can transform democracy into dictatorship and plunge the economy into disarray. The threat of totalitarianism and the material and moral misery that goes with it lurks behind any democratic socialist regime, even in long-standing democracies with developed and prosperous economies. Whataboutism, socialist style. Although arguments and facts are irrelevant to the true believers, it is worthwhile to reveal the two that Toro limited himself to. In all the countries of South America, socialist presidents have been elected this century without immediately having another Venezuela. Okay, and I say good for them that the socialist presidents did not have as much of their way as they would have liked. Yeah. Kind of in the same way that I'm glad that Obama did not have as much of his way as he could have. Like, for example, renewing the assault weapons ban of 1993 and 2013. It's not because they were less radical. Evo Morales is a radical, and Bolivian democracy is inherently weak. He expropriated the hydrocarbons industry and others, but said Bolivia now is experiencing economic growth and poverty reduction. According to Toro, Venezuela is a unique and unrepeatable case. The cause of our ills, he insists, is not the ideology that inspired each and every one of the actions of those who govern here, but the fact that they are anti-intellectual, authoritarian, and criminal. Any ideology, says Toro, would end in disaster with people like that. And people like that, he insinuates, are leading the United States today. It is not Sanders, but Trump, whom Toro wants the Americans to associate with Venezuelan socialism. It seems like a bad joke, but it is not. Toro does not deny the widespread continental corruption of each and every one of the governments of the Sao Paulo Forum, nor does he deny the authoritarian tendencies of these governments. He dodges the current Nicaraguan tragedy by limiting himself to South America, and in doing so, he disassembles his own argument. Nicaragua's socialist rulers are no less criminal nor less authoritarian than those of Venezuela. Yeah, and Voltaire would be supporting those people to be thrown out of commies all day long. Those
all day, every day.
By the way, did you see the screen caps I was sharing of that one guy that I was having a spat with on Discord?
Yeah, that guy was a fucking moron.
He's worse than Voltaire, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, he makes Voltaire look reasonable, and that is like you have to be really bad if that is even possible.
Yeah, I mean, have you heard of Marianne and Capikitty?
No.
Okay, well, she's like one of the people that was within certain conservatarian circles before he had left YouTube. But yeah, she's another ANCAP, as the name clearly implies, but still. She says apparently that she knows some information, knows a bit of the reputation about Bimler, a.k.a. Blaine Tolick, as his he gone by before he changed his name to Bimler. I think that name Bimler is supposed to be like an offshoot of Himmler, like one of Hitler's advisors. At first I thought it was supposed to be like a troll name, but I guess there is some legitimacy to why he called himself that if he's going to be outright advocating for the killing of commies and Muslims, the systematic mass killing of them.
Mm-hmm.
What a psycho. Anyway, what's going on here in the chat? Red Feather says, yes, she says whatever she thinks people want to hear. Her policies are what will benefit me the most and get me more money. Lol, yes, those in power would never be corrupt. Just this one guy. What saved other Sao Paulo forum countries from disaster when they had perfect counterparts to those who have destroyed Venezuela? Less irresponsibility in public finances. Toro suggests the only answer in which he does not contradict himself. He ignores the fact that if Chavez had done the same without causing hyperinflation, the outflows of millions of refugees fleeing from poverty in a country on the verge of famine would have occurred years earlier. Inflation prolongs an unsustainable public deficit over time. Hyperinflation is the inevitable outcome of insisting too long on the inflationary financing of the deficit. Speaking of inflation, have you ever heard of the guy called the Burger Craig, S-Man?
No.
No, he's another YouTuber. He said that you'll want some inflation, he says. Like, I don't think he was arguing for, like, hyperinflation, but just a mild, gradual inflation. And I think that it's inevitable that economies will have a certain inflation to them. But if you have, like, if you have no inflation or deflation at all, or you do have deflation, he was trying to argue that that would be economic calamity as well, because of that, people will be more incentivized to not spend anything, to not buy anything because of that.
Yeah.
It was kind of interesting. I don't think it was necessarily a hot or nuclear take, but as long as he's not arguing for like Weimar Germany or Venezuela-style hyperinflation, then he's all right, in my book. Nearly 2/3 of the Venezuelan economy disappeared in the 20 years of Chavismo power. It was socialism, pillaging of the private economy as state policy. Venezuelan hyperinflation resulted from disguising that repression and its impoverishing effect with unsustainable populist spending. It takes time to go full Venezuela. The difference between Venezuela and the rest of the continent, I consider the definition of Toro's socialist governments valid, would be that here we have suffered from more than half a century of uninterrupted socialist governments. Already in 1945, a group of military coup backers arrived who believed in the state directing the economy and maintaining the monopoly of strategic companies. After that, no non-socialist presidents were democratically elected. I almost said dramatically. Democratically elected in either the 20th century or the 21st century.
Oh, dramatically elected. So
yeah, that was a bit of a Freudian slip on my part.
Oh yeah, they get elected and then they find out that fuck, I killed the joke. But
they find out that it wasn't as easy as they thought.
Who told me healthcare was going to be so difficult, guys?
For example, there was actually a quote that I think where Trump said that he thought that being president would be easier than his job of beforehand.
Jesus Christ.
That was stupid. Like, what do you expect, dude? You gone from like running your own multi-billion-dollar company to running a multi-trillion-dollar country.
Yep.
Anyway, what were you saying?
It's a fucking joke. Like Donald Trump, how he acts is a fucking joke.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I think after this article that I will. Oh wait. Actually, no. We will save that article for later because I kind of want. Freaking. Aspie to get in this. Actually, no. Hey, S-Man, you think I could like give you the article to like pick up on this article?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
All right, so it's about it's time to go full Venezuela. That's the part that I left off at, and here is the link in the side chat. There you are.
Alrighty, guys. So hang on. So while Dark Khan is tending to whatever he needs to tend to, you'll be stuck with your neighborhood, your friendly neighborhood S-Man, and we'll be going through. It's time to go full Venezuela. All right. What the fuck?
So Loudmouth and Aspie are kind of having trouble trying to get into the stream.
All right. So while Dark Khan handles that, let's get to. It's time to go full Venezuela. The difference between Venezuela and the rest of the continent, I consider the definition of Toro's socialist governments valid, would be that here we have suffered from more than a half century of uninterrupted socialist governments. Already in 1945, a group of military coup backers arrived who believed in the state directing the economy and maintaining the monopoly of strategic companies. After that, no non-socialist presidents were democratically elected in either the 20th or 21st century. Yeah, honestly, I think it's pretty obvious that...
Hey, guys.
Hey, Aspie.
Oh, glad that you could join on. Sorry about that, Aspie. I hadn't been keeping an eye on my Twitter within the last 30 minutes to an hour.
All right, what are you guys reading?
Well, right now we are on talking about Venezuela. Then, I don't know. I guess we'll up next get onto the article that you shared right after the Venezuela article.
Yeah.
The Indian one.
Yeah.
Aspie, how dare you? You racist. No, I'm kidding.
How dare I platform a transphobic, racist, autistic, fuckboy piece of shit like Aspie.
I'm calling out Dark Khan for once again platforming an authority as a racist. The incredible Aspie.
When was the last time you heard from Owen anyway?
A couple days ago when he shared a tweet with me where I called Aircraft Sparky a cuck.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was fucking funny. Well, I called him a sociopath, and I think that's what Owen. He's like, you just realized this, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, you're one to talk, motherfucker. Anyway, so yeah, so what I take out of this paragraph is that Venezuela elects shitty presidents, and they're socialists. That makes so that's what I would make that. I would base that off of. Of those who did serve as president, just one tried a very limited turn to market-friendly policies, and it lasted for just 3 years. Against him rose the arms, the pens, the platforms, the pulpits, and the checkbooks of the military Marxist intellectuals. Socialist politicians, the ranks of Marxist priests, and the mercantilist businessmen. The determined return to customary socialism followed first. Then the jump into the void with the current radical socialism and the misery. Yeah, honestly, I think at some point you got to realize Venezuela is not worth saving. To me, I wouldn't lift the embargo or the sanctions. I'd just say, you know what? Natural selection is what they can have. That can be their last meal, is just realizing they fucked up.
I mean, I kind of think that if there are like corporations within or people within our country that actively actually want to freaking trade with companies or whatever within Venezuela, then that could be an argument to lift the sanctions. But if there's like nobody wanting to do so, well, then it's kind of a moot issue and kind of one of the last things that I would ever touch if I was a politician.
Yeah. Insist for decades on more and more socialism. Deny the resulting unproductiveness and impoverishment are the product of socialism. Do not allow another political alternative to moderate socialism other than radical socialism. Insist on legitimizing envy and resentment as a dogma in academia, culture, and entertainment. So what, certain leftists like to do with culture today in the United States. Pursue and censor everything that is not socialism in a broad sense. McDonald. Sorry, guys, I have a bit of a cold. Do not base politics on reason, but feelings, mainly resentments. Wait, I can't think of anyone who would do that. Who would do that? I know the name. Fuck. Whatever.
Or was he thinking some random geek?
Hang on, Darkon. Some random geek. I'm sorry, guys. I just have a really strong cold.
Some random geek's a nice guy, but he's a little bit of an oddball.
He's a bit of a puss.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He's a pussy, and with his pussiness, he translate a certain passive aggressiveness.
You guys should have seen his tweet where he's all like, "I want more gender, guys. So I'm a non-binary man. I want more gender."
No, I did not see his tweet on that, but I saw his bio on that, and that was the oddest shit. Like, he treats gender as if it's a different type of flavor
As
of
if
ice
it's a
cream.
fashion. As if it's a fashion statement. Is essentially what.
Like, I want more of it. Like, to me, gender almost means nothing. Like, I don't care that the fact that I am male, but these guys that hold gender like it's a sacred cow.
My identity is sacred to me. No, it's just simply that's what you are. Find something else that makes sacred in your life.
Yeah, I want more gender. I want gender.
Sorry.
I want more cyanide.
I want more gender. I want extra gender. And then he compares it to a fucking steak, which I was eating a steak at the time. Like, my male gender is a steak. Many people are satisfied with a steak, but I want more than a steak. I want a side dish of non-binary as extra gender food because I'm a little greedy with my gender. Well, I can tell you're a bit greedy with your food, geek. Just being cis male boxes me a little. Well, you can't even fit in a box, so what are you talking about? Being non-binary male frees me a little. The only thing that's going to free you from anything is a little butter on the side. Holy shit. That was meaner than I intended. Holy hell.
Teglin, that guy who wrote that entire blog post about me. That was long.
Yeah, I've not even actually read his blog on me yet because I've not had the time. And at the same time, he just came off as such a fucking condescending douchebag. I had to remind S-Man. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, Teglin, please fuck off.
Has he made a blog post about me yet? Talking about my supposed fascist pro-lifism?
Nah, I actually did an entire response video to Teglin's blog about me where I actually got him to admit he fucked up. Oh my god.
Wow.
Oh
wow.
Yeah. All right. So, regardless of the democratic development and the prosperity of their society, sooner rather than later, they will equal Venezuela in its misery. It is the lesson of the Venezuelan tragedy. Venezuela was among one of the most prosperous economies in the world, but over the course of 5 uninterrupted decades of socialist rulers who declared themselves democratically elected, this strong economy remained the reality from 1958 till 1988, and then it was doubtful from then on, and it is a falsehood today. Venezuela proves that democratic socialism can lead to socialist totalitarianism if it holds on to power long enough, and that the terrible long-term economic results of socialism will only be corrected democratically by voters who doubt socialism. What socialism does in the short term to reduce poverty will cause more and worse poverty in the medium and long term. Oh Jesus! I'm sorry. I just cannot help but laugh at this fucking tweet. But yeah, socialism, and I know people don't like me quoting Margaret Thatcher, but I think when it comes to wealth redistribution, it only works till you run out of other people's money. It's pretty simple. And until you run out of other people's land. And no, Owen, people can own land and it can be legitimate.
Isn't Venezuela sitting on a bunch of oil, asks Red Feather?
I was actually about to make a really fucked up joke, but I don't want to get the ham treatment. I'll just type it in the chat.
That'll be another can of worms that we will have to that we'll have to deal with in 2019, just like 2018.
I'm gonna type it in this chat.
Oh boy.
Yeah, the whole day yesterday, I spent my time on Twitter telling everybody that pointing out to all the people screaming about Native American genocide that it wasn't a genocide, that it was actually the virgin soil epidemic. But we'll get to that later when we read the. Nothing triggers people more than on Twitter more than saying, "Oh, the Native American genocide never happened. It was disease," and they're like, "Ah!"
Oh shit! I'm screenshotting shit.
Wait, what? You're saying that Native American genocide never happened?
Aspie's a fascist. Punch him, everybody.
No, they did. Well, it wasn't well, there was a mass extinction, but it wasn't like specifically a genocide. It was they most like 95% of them died of diseases. You'll read it in the article that I sent.
So we're done with that article, Les Man. You just finished it?
No.
Oh wait, there's a few more parts, but I wondered if you oh wait, there is one more paragraph.
No. Yeah. I mean, finish it. I'm letting you have the honors of finishing reading it.
All right. Let me get screen share out again. Let me hide the Hangout chat. Considering what I just wrote in it. All right. It must be stopped before it starts. What Torah tells us is the virtue of the recent socialist wave in Latin America will be reduction of relative poverty, but it's only a matter of time. Venezuela has not happened in Bolivia because it did not happen in Venezuela between 1999 and 2014, but between 2015 and 2018.
Hunter, mute damn it, Aspie, please mute yourself.
Yes, don't vape on DarkCon's stream. This is a Christian Google Hangout server, for fuck's sake. No. Anyway, the only way to avoid a socialist disaster is to abandon socialism in time. Venezuela shows that socialism requires time to reduce a prosperous economy to misery and rule over its ruins. With enough time and power, it will be irreversible. In contrast, the United Kingdom and Sweden are good examples of how to emerge democratically over time from the danger of elected socialism. Perhaps it will also be demonstrated in the countries of Latin America that have recently rejected socialist rule. The damage socialism can do and the time it requires do not depend on the anti-intellectuals and criminals being in charge. They depend on early institutional resistance to the worst of socialism. Oh, two more paragraphs, and then I guess I can sum up what my thoughts are here. Not falling depends on the division of powers rather than votes, on the rule of law more than on one of opinion, on limits to power, and above all, on the fact that the institutions are supported by norms and customs, values, and beliefs internalized by the overwhelming majority of the population. It is what Venezuela Jesus Christ, I can't read today. It's a little early anyway. It is what failed in Venezuela, little by little, for a long time. It can be repeated wherever they refuse to learn from Venezuela, and most Venezuelans refuse to learn from all the socialist regimes that reach totalitarianism. What Venezuelans like Toro continue to refuse to see, even in the midst of this tragedy. So, I have to largely agree that, when electing socialists to run the economy it's like having a child with the ability to have their hand be on the nuclear codes at any time. It's like an economic suicide. So guys, if you ever feel depressed and you feel like you're going to end it all, go to Venezuela, guys.
All right.
Or if you have weight problems, Venezuela has a beautiful diet plan.
All right. So on with the next article. Aspie, you there?
Aspie died from the cringe.
Yeah, I'm still here. Here.
All right. So to clarify your comments earlier, you would not die that the American government did systematically, in some circumstance, kill Native Americans.
Oh yeah, there are certain events which happened. I'm not going to. I'm not going to those. I was just saying that the whole thing wasn't.
You're breaking up, Aspie.
The whole thing wasn't. Yet, motherfucker. Be right back. Be right back.
It is the pure goody two shoes Christian boy. He said motherfucker.
Can you guys?
It's still sounding like you're breaking up.
DarkCon doesn't want you to break up, Aspie. It's going to crush DarkCon's heart.
Hey,
I'll be right
fuck
back.
you.
Be right back. I'll be right back.
No, Dark Con, I'm not into bald white old men.
Old men? How old do you think I am?
84.
Oh, screw you.
I just said no, Dark Con. Learn to take no for an answer.
Screw you. With a 9-inch
right.
screw.
All right, I'm back. Is
Dark
this better?
Con, that's your fantasy with Blair anyway. Chill out.
Okay, let's do
It's
this.
a 16-inch zucchini. Don't you remember?
Yes, I do remember. That degenerate shit from fucking Conundrum. All right.
Okay, so I did not know if specifically you wanted to like read the article yourself, Aspie, or if I read it or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I don't want you to like come off as an outright genocide denier, but although not a Jewish genocide denier, but more like a Native American genocide denier. I mean, I guess I can understand it more for somebody saying that Native American genocide wasn't really a genocide for the most part, because more of that was from diseases more than actual systematic killing from the government. Whereas the Jewish genocide, that was like the German government systematically rounding up Jews and killing them, and etc.
Yeah.
But you aren't denying that in some cases that the American government did kill huge swaths of Native Americans.
Oh, I'm not denying that. Like the U.S. Army, like Wounded Knee or the Trail of Tears, well, which was caused by a Democrat, by the way. But anyway, yeah, I'm not. I'm just saying that when people look at like 95, the fact that 95% of the Native American population died off from diseases, and they try to say that's genocide, that's where I have a problem with it. So yeah, let's start reading.
All right, so getting on with the story that kind of is going to, I guess, back up what Aspie is saying. Were American Indians the victims of genocide? And of course, anybody that plays the Native Americans situation to like, to show off the illegitimacy of the United States will say just yes, objectively yes. But let's read for the sake of argument. Related link. Yes, Native Americans were the victims of genocide by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz. I guess this is an article in response to a different article, but anyways. Red Feather says, we did screw the Native Americans over on some treaty deals. Yes. On September 21st, the National Museum of the American Indian will open its doors. In an interview early this year, the museum's founding director, W. Richard West, declared that the new institution would not shy away from such difficult subjects as the effort to eradicate American Indian culture in the 19th and 20th centuries. It is a safe bet that someone will also inevitably raise the issue of genocide. The story of the encounter between European settlers and America's native population does not make for pleasure reading. Among early accounts, perhaps the most famous is Helen Hunt Jackson's A Century of Dishonor, 1888, a doleful recitation of forced removals, killings, and callous disregard. Jackson's book, which clearly captured some essential elements of what happened, also set a pattern of exaggeration and one-sided indictment that has persisted to this day, as we see throughout arguments regarding immigration and just the country of the United States in general. How long is this?
It's long. You don't have to read to the whole thing.
I mean, if we go down the scroll, there's like, I think a whole lot of it is like comments and citations for the article itself.
When Dark Con doesn't get the joke.
Yeah, I see.
Hey, screw you. I get that's what she said joke means. I have seen that meme, S-Man. Okay.
Sure.
Yes, I have. It's from Futurama. Bender said it. Anyway. Thus, according to Ward Churchill, professor of ethnic studies at the University of Colorado, the reduction of the North American Indian population from an estimated 12 million in 1500 to barely 237,000 in 1900 represents a vast genocide. the most sustained on record. By the end of the 19th century, writes David E. Stannard, a historian at the University of Hawaii, Native Americans had undergone the worst human holocaust the world had ever witnessed, warring across 2 continents nonstop for 4 centuries and consuming the lives of countless tens of millions of people. In the judgment of Lenore A. Stiffer and Phil Lane Jr., there can be no more monumental example of sustained genocide, certainly none involving a race of people as broad and complex as this, anywhere in the annals of human history.
Annals.
All right.
Oh, Jesus.
It said annals, not anals.
I know, annals.
The Dark Pruditarian.
Dark Pruditarian. Why? Is it because I ruin jokes occasionally?
Sometimes, yeah.
I guess I do.
Let's
Anyway.
keep going.
The sweeping charge of genocide against the Indians became especially popular during the Vietnam War, when historians opposed to that conflict began drawing parallels between our actions in Southeast Asia and earlier examples of a supposedly ingrained American viciousness toward non-white peoples. The historian Richard Drennan, referring to the troops under the command of the Indian scout Kit Carson, called them forerunners of the burning 5th Marines, who set fire to Vietnamese villages, while in The American Indian, the first victim, 1972, J. David urged contemporary readers to recall how America's civilization had originated in theft and murder and efforts toward genocide. Further accusations of genocide marked the run-up to the 1992 quinticentenary, I think I pronounced that right, of the landing of Columbus. The National Council of Churches adopted a resolution branding this event an invasion that resulted in the slavery and genocide of Native people. In a widely read book, The Conquest of Paradise, 1990, Kirkpatrick Sale charged the English and their American successors with pursuing a policy of extermination that had continued unabated for 4 centuries. Later works have followed suit. In the 1999 Encyclopedia of Genocide, edited by the scholar Israel Charney, an article by Ward Churchill argues that extermination was the express objective of the U.S. government. To the Cambodia expert Ben Kiernan, similarly, genocide is the only appropriate way to describe how white settlers treated the Indians, and so forth. That American Indians suffered horribly is indisputable. But whether their suffering amounted to a Holocaust or to genocide is another matter.
Can I just say something? Ward Churchill has been found to be made to he's been found guilty of bad research, and he's been found guilty of essentially lying about a lot of things. So yeah, Ward Churchill, not exactly the most trustworthy source.
Want to bring up an example or two?
I think there was he was talking about one event which he described as a genocide, but they actually he used a few sources and had some very faulty. I had quite a few faulty sources in his research. I don't know exactly specific example because I'm really bad at names, but let's keep going. I just wanted to mention that.
Okay. And if we're going to be getting to talking about diseases, of how that a bulk majority of Native Americans suffered from diseases, I mean, by that argument, you also have to call what happened to the empire, the Mongolian Empire during Genghis Khan and the reign of his family. You would have to call that a genocide as well, because there was massive disease that had struck the Mongolian Empire at the time. I mean, this is just me going off of rough information here, but still, that was one of the contributing reasons as to why the Mongolian Empire had fell, was because of disease. I mean, by that argument, the Mongolian Empire suffered a genocide or Holocaust, but really, in reality, nobody calls it that. So,
all right,
I think we should hold it to the same standard. Anyway,
yeah.
2. It is a firmly established fact that a mere 250,000 Native Americans were still alive in the territory of the United States at the end of the 19th century. Only 250,000? Damn. Still in scholarly contention, however, is the number of Indians alive at the time of first contact with Europeans. Some students of the subject speak of an inflated numbers game. Others charge that the size of the Aboriginal people has been deliberately minimized in order to make the decline seem less severe than it was. Aboriginal population. Isn't that the Australian people?
It's a number. I think Aboriginal is just a simile for the people who were like first there.
Mm. I see.
Oh my
So
God.
the black people of so I see the black people of Australia. They weren't really called Aborigines, is what you're saying. That was not the
They were
official.
called. This is really confusing, but I guess I think when he wrote Aboriginal, he might have meant I don't know what he was talking about right there, but anyway, let's just assume he's talking about the American natives with that
Okay.
word. So they were called Aborigine in Australia. They were called Aborigines, but Aboriginal is the adjective, so maybe describing native population. So let's keep going.
Okay. Disparity in estimates is enormous. In 1928, the ethnologist James Mooney proposed a total count of 1,152,950 Indians in all tribal areas north of Mexico at the time of the European arrival. By 1987, in American Indian Holocaust and Survival, Russell Thornton was giving a figure of well over 5 million, nearly 5 times as high as Mooney's, while Lenore Stiffern and Phil Lane Jr. suggested a total of 12 million. Damn, numbers are getting higher and higher. That figure rested in turn on the work of the anthropologist Henry Dobbins, who in 1983 had estimated the Aboriginal population of North America as a whole at 18 million and of the present territory of the United States at about 10 million. Okay, this is going to kind of drive me crazy. I want to just very quickly search up the definition of Aboriginal.
It means they're not original. Okay.
It means they're original.
Okay, so I'm looking at Ian Miles Chong's.
Hello?
Yeah.
I thought I heard you breaking up for a second there.
I'm looking at Ian Miles Chong's Twitter. He and Lapis and Owen were going at it at one point.
Is that the reason why he privated his Twitter?
Owen privated his Twitter?
That's what I last saw, anyways.
No, it's not private right now. I saw Lapis and Owen fighting with for just a minute. Ian Miles Chong.
Okay, I guess he. Yeah, I mean, just yesterday when I was like scrolling through all my Twitter messages, I had found that he had locked it out. But oh well.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck they were fighting about. Apparently, Ian Miles Chong's fans went after someone, and Ian's getting the blame. I don't fucking know. I don't really give a shit about Ian Miles Chong.
Yeah.
I just think that.
I'm just going to mention right now. What is that? What is that squealing sound?
Aspie's farting.
But anyway, I want to just mention like Lapis very quickly since we're on that subject. Lapis actually shared some screen caps of what Stefan Molyneux was saying, and he was all like, "We haven't had bald presidents for a while," or something like that, and was saying white people when they get older typically go bald, and she was like, she was pointing out, oh, and leftists are the one with the victim mentality or something like that, and I said in response, really, Steph? Baldness, that's what you have. Let me see here.
No, when white people go bald, we look like skinheads. When black people go bald, they still look good.
But Owen doesn't.
Yeah, Owen.
Oh,
Owen
man.
has Steve Shive's lips.
What the fuck?
He does. He has big, giant Steve Shive's lips.
Oh, God.
He has the pussy lips, yeah.
He does. I'm gonna call him that next time he makes me angry. Whatever, pussy lips.
Okay.
I called him that once. I called a black guy that once, and I got called homophobic.
My father says Ian is an idiot. Yeah, I don't know much about Ian Miles Chung. I just know that he's hated by all sides for the most part, as far as I know. Anyway, From one perspective, these differences, however startling, may seem beside the point. There is ample evidence, after all, that the arrival of the white man triggered a drastic reduction in the number of Native Americans. Nevertheless, even if the higher figures are credited, they alone do not prove the occurrence of genocide. To address this issue properly, we must begin with the most important reason for the Indians' catastrophic decline, namely the spread of highly contagious diseases to which they had no immunity. This phenomenon is known by scholars as a virgin soil epidemic. In North America, it was the norm. The most lethal of the pathogens introduced by the Europeans was smallpox, which sometimes incapacitated so many adults at once that deaths from hunger and starvation ran as high as deaths from disease. In several cases, entire tribes were rendered extinct. Other killers included measles, influenza, whooping cough, diphtheria, typhus, bubonic plague, cholera, and scarlet fever. Although syphilis was apparently native to parts of the Western Hemisphere, it too was probably introduced into North America by Europeans. Okay, I will admit that for the most part that the diseases were an indirect fault and cause of Europeans, but I highly doubt that it was like intentional to where they were all like, we are going to round up all these people and give them diseases, etc. What is this that you were wanting to share again? What is this? Is this poor bastard's out of context? I can't hardly see it. And if it got leaked that Trump had a 2.5-inch penis, would the red pill incels celebrate having a micro penis as ultimate masculinity?
And Charlie, look at what Charlie put. Look at what Charlie put.
He says, nice. Congrats. Okay. I don't see how that's relevant. I mean, it seems that Charlie is all like, that's a good one, Tam. That's a good joke. The David Charette guy is cute as fuck. What? Oh, cute as cuck.
I shared it. I shared it to poor bastards out of context, and Ham put "cuck you Eshon" or Eshon. It's like, do you take me as Japanese or Chinese, Ham?
Oh boy, but yeah, I mean the one about Trump and a micro penis, that is hilarious.
Hey, by the way, quick question: Did either of you make it through a No Nut November?
Yeah. Aspie, of course, didn't. Darkon definitely did not. I am the master of my domain. You guys are betas.
Admittedly.
Look at what Red Feather says here. Red Feather says here in the chat. Laugh my ass off. Atheism is unstoppable. Called me an incel in a chat the other day. Such a sad rue. It's not over yet. Wait, what?
Oh, Jesus.
What? You share a chat with AIU, Red Feather?
What?
Damn, I pity you. What?
Wait, what chat? What do you mean a chat? You mean like in Discord?
I don't know. I guess all she says is, AIU called me an incel in a chat the other day. Wow. No Nut November isn't over, says Red Feather.
I know it's not. Then you got that in December. I heard it's called Destroy Dick December.
Dick Destroy
December. It's like on the first day you nut once, then the second day you nut twice, and then the last day on December 31st you nut 31 times.
Okay. She says it was Kumite live chat. Okay, I see.
Wow.
I can imagine in February.
I pity you, Red Feather. I really pity you to the fact that you had to share a chat with that psycho. No, I haven't talked to him on a stream. No, I did not think that you talked to him ever on a stream. In fact, hey, S-Man, hadn't Red Feather actually arrived on one of your live streams once or twice before?
She did once.
Did you? He? Didn't you mean she?
She.
Okay. Yeah. I did not think that you were saying that you shared a stream with him. I know that Humane Mind shared a stream with him once. This was when he was still ignorant of the full extent of AIU's crimes, before he had got educated by Loudmouth Reviews on that. Yeah.
Yeah, Aspie. You know what they do in February? If you have a date, it's called Frequently Fuck February.
well, it is the same month of Valentine's Day, so.
Okay, so I don't think we will go through this entire article because we keep on meandering about, and I have 3 more articles that I want to get to. Damn it, I lost my place because... damn it.
Rip.
I lost my place.
R.I.P.
Where was I? Okay, it's right here. About all this, there is no essential disagreement. I think we'll just finish up this section, but there are like 3 more sections to this article. If y'all want to read this for yourself, the other 3 sections, I will have this link down in the description below post of this stream being on air. All right. But all of this, there is no essential disagreement. The most hideous enemy of Native Americans was not the white man and his weaponry, concludes Alfred Crosby, but the invisible killers which those men brought in their blood and breath. It is thought that between 75 to 90% of all Indian deaths resulted from these killers. Okay, so that kind of dwindles down the idea that it was a genocide, I would say. To some, however, this is enough in itself to warrant the term genocide. David Stannard, for instance, states that just as Jews who died of disease and starvation in the ghettos are counted among the victims of the Holocaust, Indians who died of introduced diseases were as much the victims of the Euro-American genocidal war as were those burned or stabbed or hacked or shot to death or devoured by hungry dogs. As an example of actual genocidal conditions, Stannard points to Franciscan missions in California, as furnaces of death.
What? Missions? Christian missions? This was back in the time when people had no idea what disease was. They still believed in the miasma theory, which believed that you got diseases in certain areas due to environmental factors. This has nothing that. Oh my gosh, the missions had on average better intentions, but whether or not you think those missions had good intentions, those were not meant for genocide. Ugh. Anyway, keep going.
All right. But right away, we are in highly debatable territory. It is true that the cramped quarters of the missions, with their poor ventilation and bad sanitation, encourage the spread of disease. But it is demonstrably untrue that, like the Nazis, the missionaries were unconcerned with the welfare of their native converts. No matter how difficult the conditions under which the Indians labored, obligatory work, often inadequate food and medical care, corporal punishment, their experience bore no comparison with the fate of the Jews in the ghettos. The missionaries had a poor understanding of the causes of the diseases that afflicted their charges, and medically there was little they could do for them. By contrast, the Nazis... What is that? Okay, never mind. By contrast, the Nazis knew exactly what was happening in the ghettos and quite deliberately deprived the inmates of both food and medicine, unlike in Stannard's furnaces of death. The deaths that occurred there were meant to occur. Okay, so it explains that some diseases were helped cause, or that there were some diseases amongst the Jewish Holocaust that helped contribute to the death. But at the same time, they add the caveat that the Nazis knew exactly what they were doing with regarding the diseases that the Jews were catching. And that kind of still reinforces the idea of that being a genocide. But because of the ignorance of the white man back during the supposed Native American genocide, that kind of dwindles the idea that it was a genocide, much less an intentional one.
Yeah.
Also, asked me, I did the math because I was bored. If you went with Dick Destroying December, if you did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... nearly 500 fucking times in 1 month. That is insane.
Yeah, nearly 500 times. What's the exact number?
496.
Oh my gosh.
You'd have to be like a fucking animal to do that.
A fucking animal? Is that what you said? Or cannibal?
Animal, Darky Khan.
Okay. Anyway. The larger picture also does not conform to Stannard's idea of disease as an expression of genocidal war. True, the forced relocations of Indian tribes were often accompanied by great hardship and harsh treatment. The removal of the Cherokee from their homelands to territories west of the Mississippi in 1838 took the lives of thousands and has entered history as a trail of tears. But the largest loss of life occurred well before this time, and sometimes after only minimal contact with the European traders. True, too, some colonists later welcomed the high mortality among Indians, seeing it as a sign of divine providence. That, however, does not alter the basic fact that Europeans did not come to the New World in order to infect the natives with deadly diseases. Or did they? Ward Churchill, taking the argument a step further than Stannard, asserts that there was nothing unwitting or unintentional about the way the great bulk of North America's native population disappeared. It was precisely malice, not nature, that did the deed. In brief, the Europeans were engaged in biological warfare. So it is confirmed, everybody. They had WMDs back then. Anyway, unfortunately, actually, I'm going to check up on Twitter very quickly.
Oh, the Rich Bastards chat is getting really fucking funny. There's so much material for poor bastards out of context, especially with what Sparky said. I'm going to make a really funny comment.
Sparky and Bix going back at it with each other.
Yeah.
What are they going back at each other over?
Africa, Christianity, Islam, and slavery.
SB going to be upgrading his Pornhub subscription.
I don't have a Pornhub subscription.
Bullshit. Right.
I can't go to Pornhub for more than 2 minutes without being freaked out by that place. That place. Have you seen the ads? Even the ads are bad.
Sure. That's how that you were able to. That's how that you were unable to get through all those statistics. Right.
It was those statistics are given to the public. They're not.
Aspie with those statistics, it only takes them 2 minutes, if you know what I mean.
Oh, numbers. Oh, yeah. That's.
I'm pretty sure that's how economists get off, is they look at numbers.
Oh, wow. They got rid of the corporate tax. Oh, yeah.
Oh, the Dow Jones is up 10 points. Anyway. Unfortunately for this thesis, we know of but a single instance of such warfare, and the documentary evidence is inconclusive. In 1763, a particular serious uprising threatened the British garrisons west of the Allegheny Mountains. Worried about his limited resources and disgusted by what he saw as the Indians' treacherous and savage modes of warfare, Sir Geoffrey Amherst, Commander-in-Chief of British forces in North America, wrote as follows to Colonel Henry Bouquet at Fort Pitt. You will do well to try to inoculate the Indians with smallpox by means of blankets, as well as to try every other method that can serve to extirpate this I don't know how you pronounce that. Execrable race. Accessible race. Okay, thank you, S-Man. Thank you.
I thought you were trying to say exacerbate, and I'm like, how's it that hard?
No. Well, am I the only one who finds it quite odd that this guy's last name is named after a bunch of flowers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's probably very flamboyant.
Yeah.
Faggot. Oh, Ripper says, okay, then his TikTok account gonna be busy. I've been getting a shit ton of ads from TikTok.
What is TikTok anyway?
It's just basically a bunch of cute white girls being goofy in front of a camera.
Sounds like the early YouTube.
Early YouTube. I thought early YouTube was cat videos.
Oh, never mind. Sounds like early feminist videos is what I should have said.
Oh God.
Except I don't think the white girls were being like intentionally funny like the girls from TikTok seem to be. That's the only difference.
Yeah.
All right. So, Repo says, I just saw a notification that Repsion has a Joy Sparkle BS Files Part 2. Nice.
Nice.
Part of me feels like I might make a video on her. Maybe not.
What's Joy Sparkle? Who is Joy Sparkle anyway? Is she like just a YouTuber?
Oh, God. Aspie, you're so behind the times.
Well, Aspie, I'll just quickly explain Mr. Conservatarian. So basically, she was a YouTuber. She was one of the first few people calling out Onision. She stayed consistent with that. Then she made an obscene number of videos on him, Daddy-O5, and all this other shit. lot of drama, a lot of accusations against her. She deletes her channel, claiming she was doxxed. Then about a little less than a year after that, she comes back, and she's this bloated land whale, and she says she'll leave YouTube, but she's made some videos since then, and absolute, she's like the female Keemstar.
Mm-hmm.
Except if Keemstar like really let himself go. Also, this would hurt Darkon's feelings. This out of context meme.
Okay, what the fuck is it?
What was it's like Keemstar? I know his channel's called Drama Alert. So
Death
we just
to the Dark Continent. No! How could you?
Spark plug. How could you wish death upon my homeland?
Darkon wants to retire to Africa with and meet his future wife there.
I will burn you down to gravy, you fat fuck. I will shave off the double chin off of your head, mount it on my wall as a decoration for all the battles I fought.
all right.
Oh Jesus, Darkon.
Okay, let's keep going
Anyway.
through this.
Sparkboy's gonna fight you.
Reaper, you have to calm down now.
No, mortal man. Remember of who's in possession of you now. You white, baited out bitch.
All right.
Hey, that's not nice, Reaper. Shut up.
I will be mean all I want to you and your spurgy, aspy friend. And your spick man speaks friend here.
Oh, you hoe.
All right, let's keep going.
I will make you my bitch, you hoe.
Bring it on.
I'm gonna try to take in possession of my own body, not let Reaper get out of control again.
I was gonna say I was gonna take off my white tie and I was gonna hang him with it.
All right.
Hey, you be hanging me at the same time. Don't forget who is the person that he is inside of right now.
Oh no, I accidentally forgot, guys. My bad.
Killing your friend Zach as well as Reaper.
I guess I inherit Zach's subscriber count now, guys. I'm kidding.
Okay.
Hey, half of these subscribers are your fans, although I guess you would also be inheriting all the ANCAPs that I cultivated from 2 cents the subscriber count as well. Anyway.
That is true. That is true.
But now, getting back to serious mode. Bouquet, or bundle of flowers as I'll call him, clearly approved of Amherst's suggestion, but whether he himself carried it out is uncertain. On or around June 24th, 2 traders at Fort Pitt did give blankets and a handkerchief from the fort's quarantine hospital to 2 visiting Delaware Indians. And one of the traders noted in his journal, "I hope it will have the desired effect. Smallpox was already present among tribes of Ohio. At some point after this episode, there was another outbreak in which hundreds died." So to some certain extent, the whole smallpox thing, that some of that was intentional, apparently. So
Just
I will
a very small
admit that.
about, but it's very,
Right.
but it's very, but the records on that are very inconclusive, and that it's unsure whether or not that actually caused the actual outbreak, because smallpox was already very prevalent among the native populations. So it would have been the equivalent of lighting a match and throwing it in a bonfire. It was going to burn one way or another. So
Yeah.
Okay. A second, even less substantiated instance of alleged biological warfare concerns an incident that occurred on June 20th, 1837. On that day, Churchill writes, Ward Churchill, not Winston Churchill, Ward Churchill, writes, the U.S. Army began to dispense the trade blankets to Mandans and other Indians gathered at Fort Clark on the Missouri River in present-day North Dakota. Okay, so that's a tribe that I hadn't heard of before until now. Mandans. All right. He continues, far from being trade goods, the blankets had been taken from a military infirmary in St. Louis, quarantined for smallpox, and brought upriver aboard the steamboat St. Peter's. When the first Indians showed symptoms of the disease on July 14, the post surgeon advised those camped near the post to scatter and seek sanctuary in the villages of healthy relatives. In this way, the disease was spread. The Mandans were virtually exterminated, and other tribes suffered similarly devastating losses, citing a figure of 100,000 or more fatalities caused by the U.S. Army in the 1836-40 through 1840 smallpox pandemic. Elsewhere, he speaks of a toll several times that number. Churchill refers the reader to Thornton's American Indian Holocaust and Survival. All right. Okay, so I got 9 likes now on this video and to 6 dislikes.
Approval rating is increasing, y'all.
Yes, vote for me. I will make America better than Trump will again.
Dark Han will make America Christian again. No, I'm kidding. Actually, no, Dark Han will make America have a better economy, like free market.
Yes. Supporting Churchill here are Stiffirm and Lane, who write that the distribution of smallpox-infected blankets by the U.S. Army to Mandans at Fort Clark was the causative factor in the pandemic of 1836 through 40. In evidence, they cite the Journal of a Contemporary at... Oh, excuse me. Didn't hear that one, did you?
Dark Han, the dark windy Tarian.
All right. Francis A. Chardon. Yeah, I am getting kind of long-winded in this article. But Chardon's journal manifestly does not suggest that the U.S. Army distributed infected blankets, instead blaming the epidemic on the inadvertent spread of disease by a ship's passenger. And as for the 100,000 fatalities, not only does Thornton fail to allege such obviously... Oh, excuse me. The dark gassitarian. Such obviously absurd numbers, but he too points to infected passengers on the steamboat St. Peter's as the cause. Another scholar, drawing on newly discovered source material, has also refuted the idea of a conspiracy to harm the Indians. Similarly, at odds with any such idea is the effort of the United States government at this time to vaccinate the native population. Smallpox vaccination, a procedure developed by the English country Dr. Edward Jenner in 1796, was first ordered in 1801 by President Jefferson. The program continued in force for 3 decades, though its implementation was slowed both by the resistance of the Indians, who suspected a trick, and by a lack of interest on the part of some officials. Still, as Thornton writes, vaccination of American Indians did eventually succeed in reducing mortality from smallpox. To sum up, European settlers came to the New World for a variety of reasons, but the thought of infecting Indians with deadly pathogens was not one of them. As for the charge that the U.S. government should itself be held responsible for the demographic disaster that overtook the American Indian population, it is unsupported by evidence or legitimate argument. The United States did not wage biological warfare, except for that one instance. Only that one instance up above there.
And even there, it was probably just on an off chance that maybe this is the reason. Maybe, but...
Right. The United States did not wage biological warfare against the Indians. Neither can the large number of deaths as a result of disease be considered the result of a genocidal design. All right, so again, I will leave the rest of the sections for anybody who wants to read it in the future. Maybe I'll devote a single stream reading this entire article in full myself, because this is an interesting read, and I would like to thank Incredible Aspie for recommending this read.
All right, thanks. All right, I think I'm gonna go now. I need some stuff. There's some stuff that's for school I need to work on.
All right, stay busy and stay out of trouble, Aspie, and upload more content to your channel, bitch.
All right, I will. I'll probably upload something as soon as I can. All right, see ya. Bye.
Latest.
Bye.
All right. So, 3 more articles here. Actually, maybe I should just... Oh, man, this is like a longer article here. It's talking about the history of how Christianity gave America Thanksgiving. Oh, wait, no, that's not 3 more articles. Just 2 more, because that's just a definition of Aboriginal that I searched up. Actually, yeah, I think I will just save this article for another time, and we'll just focus more precisely on the news right here. And so this is kind of more in relation to FBI corruption, James Comey corruption, and just gonna probably come in relation to the whole Russia collusion thing. But anyway, this is from Bongino.com. This is like Dan Bongino. He's like one of the... fill-in hosts for Mark Levin on occasion. I guess he's for a good portion of the time, his own freelance radio show host or something. But for the sake of argument, let's read this article. Comey vows to resist GOP subpoena. And by the way, I found this article on Twitter. Former FBI Director James Comey announced that he would resist the Republican subpoena for him to appear in a closed-door hearing, claiming they would selectively leak and distort his testimony. Taken to Twitter on Thanksgiving Day, Comey wrote, "Happy Thanksgiving. Got a subpoena from House Republicans. I'm still happy to sit in the light and answer all questions, but I will resist a closed-door thing because I've seen enough of their selective leaking and distortion. Let's have a hearing and invite everyone to see." I don't consider you the most trustworthy of people on that. So, well, actually, this is a one untrustworthy group versus an untrustworthy individual. So, let's keep that in mind. So, but I would like to actually see it open door instead of closed door so that we could get the full context of the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
Last week, Comey tweeted his desire for a public hearing, writing, "Truth is best served by transparency. House Republicans can ask me anything they want, but I want the American people to watch. So let's have a public hearing. Truth is best served by transparency. Let me know when is convenient." Red Feather says, yeah, Comey, you know all about leaks. Conservatives like the Washington Examiner's Byron York were quick to point out the hypocrisy of Comey's complaint about selective leaking, given his deliberate leak to the media of his private meetings with President Trump. James Comey won't talk with House investigators behind closed doors because I've seen enough of the selective leaking and distortion. Selective leaking? Imagine that.
Yep.
Earlier this week, Congressman Trey Gowdy, Republican of South Carolina, that's one of the... what do you think about Trey Gowdy, if I may just very quickly ask you, S-Man?
I find him to be a very interesting congressman, even though he doesn't get all that much of media attention. I think he's a very interesting guy. I can't really say I dislike him.
Yeah, I actually, quite frankly, like him. He doesn't get a whole bunch of media coverage in the recent year or two, but in 2015 and 16, he was pretty popular on YouTube, actually, Trey Gowdy just grilling and roasting various people during congressional hearings. That guy knows how to make a congressional hearing pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I especially love those when one of my favorite instances of that was Rand Paul wrecking Lindsey Graham.
Right. Now, what was the issue on, by the way?
It was on Guantanamo Bay and just general civil liberties.
I see. Earlier this week, Congressman Trey Gowdy, Republican, South Carolina, slammed Comey for calling for a public hearing, claiming it would enable the former FBI director to hide behind the excuse of not being able to answer the questions in a public setting. Oh man, that's actually a good point when it comes to politicians in general, not just Comey himself, but yeah. It kind of works both ways. Either A, you could have a closed hearing where either side could take out of context their opposition, and there would not be any proof whether or not they did take them out of context. But at the same time, if you make it public, one side or the other could possibly say, "I refuse to answer this in a public setting because, what's the word I'm looking for? Because confidentiality," or something like that. Gowdy told Fox and Friends, did he interview Hillary Clinton in public? Did he interview George Papadopoulos in public? Did he interview Michael Flynn in public? Did he interview Huma Abedin, Cheryl Mills? Has the FBI ever conducted an interview in public? And has the FBI ever conducted an interview where you are limited to 5 minutes, which is what happens in congressional hearings? Yeah, that's actually a bit of hypocrisy right there, because I think the FBI interviewed Christine Blasey Ford in private, and all the other witnesses and all the people that Ford and other rape accusers of Kavanaugh, all the supposed corroborators, they interviewed them in private settings, is what I recall. Ultimately, the congressional hearing kind of worked out in Kavanaugh's favor, but nonetheless, for the sake of journalistic integrity, I think that it would have been best if like those were like put out in public, or at least if you like written down the entire interview and released the entire manuscript of the interview. Red Feather says, I love Gowdy. Well, then compromise and let him have the public hearing. Anything he refuses to answer, he has to in a closed door meeting. The last time I saw Jim Comey in a public congressional hearing, almost 100 times he said, I can't answer in this setting.
Oh, Jesus.
Wow. He continued. So why in the world would he want to go back to a setting where he knows he can't answer all the questions? I'm sure he only wants me to have 5 minutes. I'm sure of that, he said. Damn, Gowdy. This is why I love Gowdy. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't remember what... I heard he's retired. He's retired from Congress, but I wonder why.
Oh, wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know why. I mean, it's coming close to like, I guess. Well, he's getting close to the end of his term. Like, I think he was like in Congress ever since 2010. So maybe so he's been around for a little bit. Maybe for the sake of being a man of humility or something like that, he'll like resign his seat, unlike Mitch McConnell or any of those other long-term politicians in general. For the sake of personal integrity and humility, he'll just he's retiring. I mean, I can only imagine that unless there's actual suspicion of any kind of conspiracy or scandal or whatever, that I can only assume that that's the reasoning. Assuming that that's true anyway. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte, a Republican in Virginia, is planning to have Comey testify on November 29th and former Attorney General Loretta Lynch on December 5th. Goodlatte plans to question the two on matters relating to their decision-making during the 2016 presidential race. GOP members of the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees are eager to question Comey on his controversial decision to not recommend a criminal indictment against Hillary Clinton for her use of a private email server while she was Secretary of State. They also wish to ask Comey about the memos he kept of his meetings and conversations with President Trump. End of article. And even though that was short and almost, I don't know, I won't say void of substance, even though that it was short and kind of a subject that is practically dead, you know, FBI corruption, etc. That was still an entertaining article in my opinion, especially with the 2 cents that Dan Bongino wrote in of Trey Gowdy's, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, anything you want to say in conclusion to this stream, S-Man, before we go off air?
No, not really. I don't have anything I'd like to add after this. I think this was a pretty good note to end off on.
All right. So for all of you watching, I will be hosting and moderating a debate between Rin Michaelis and another guy called Ishmael Jones, is what he calls himself on Twitter. I do not know who this guy is, but I guess he's somebody who Rin kind of got in a little bit of a scuffle against. And she actually requested me if I could like moderate a debate between the two of them. So I feel honored. And so here I am announcing to everybody, debate at 7 p.m. this evening, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So do not miss that. And I'll also be hosting another news stream on Sunday afternoon, the typical news stream. I don't think I will have anything planned. So we'll be back on schedule with that. But aside from that, that's all I have to say. I'm the Dark Conservatarian. This is my loyal co-host, S-Man Speaks. We will see y'all later. God bless.
See ya.